Okay,
So,
juice.
yeah, what was the last phrase that you said?
A lot of
Discomfort,
expansion, a lot of discomfort.
a lot of discomfort.
A lot of
So,
discomfort.
I was talking to my friend the other day, and I watched him go through the most difficult period of his life where things that had come up for him, emotions, sensations, thoughts, attitudes, perspectives that never once crossed his mind, and in his entire life he was experiencing being suicidal or having intense rage and hatred. This spawned from a breakup that happened very severely, very unexpectedly, from what he would probably consider his best friend ever. And he's like, I've never had ideas of suicide in my life. I've never felt depression. I've never felt hatred and rage. And so it really scared him. He's like, I've never dealt with these things. I can't believe I'm experiencing something like this. I thought this is only for other people who've had like really traumatic childhoods and really severe things. But after that, he went on in a very short period of time, end up moving into the best place of his life by like 1,000. He got into a position with his job where he was the most appreciated, the most valued. He was delivering the most value and receiving the most money with the least amount of effort. He was in a better relationship. He was in with better friends, and he was in a better city for him, just specifically for him.
Yeah.
And it came from the darkest period of his time. I watched this whole transition. I was there during the whole thing. And I was actually a big part of helping him transition. He was in my room for a month or two, crying himself to sleep. I would just be holding him. And as I've looked around life repeatedly over and over, I really have seen in my own life, like when I was being suicidal, when I had suicidal thoughts or cystic acne and the hard things I dealt with in the past, they always created the greatest transformation. They always created the greatest changes of my life, and the greatest things came out of the most difficult and hard things. So even with my chronic pain, which is still here, it's still very severe. I've just seen enough people in the outside world, and I've seen stuff too much in my own life to go, man, something great's going to come out of this. It's the only way it works. And I think there is a caveat that you do have to use the challenging, difficult times, and you have to transmute them. You have to alchemize them. I think people, if they do get caught in a victim mindset of like, this is horrible, this shouldn't have happened, why me in a negative sense, and not looking at it as a positive. And I have to admit, that's fucking hard, especially when something really severe happens to you and you're not going to see it while you're in it. The dots aren't going to connect when you're going through the storm. But if you have enough awareness, I think, on looking at life, and from the outside or your past, or just being a good observer, you'll see that the greatest things, if you allow them to break you down and to rebuild you, are the greatest gifts that we can have. So when problems come for me, or challenges or difficulties, let's say for me in my business, because I spent 4.5 years in bed 20 plus hours a day. I couldn't work much, couldn't have a lot of business problems. I wanted to work. So now when I'm able to work a little bit more as I am, and I have some problems or some challenges that are uncomfortable, I'm fucking happy because I know what it's like to go years without them and wanting them, and like wanting to change, wanting to grow, wanting to learn, wanting to struggle in a way that was more enjoyable to me. So now when I have business problems, I'm like, fuck yeah, great. I've been waiting for something to do. I've been waiting for some sort of like challenge or something to solve, so some sort of my capacity to be used. So I think discomfort and stress is pretty much maybe the only way that we grow. If not, I think it's definitely the ways we grow, kind of the bigger jumps in life. Maybe we can do some more smoother growing and stuff, but the big catalysts and initiations all proceed from crisis.
Yeah. Well said, brother. Yeah. Makes me think of the psychologist, psychiatrist Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He's got like that pyramid of needs, you know, like where survival's the most basic need,
Mm.
then reproduction, then control of your environment, then things that are, it kind of lines up with the chakras really. And then when you get into things like the heart and higher minded things, let's say. But when there's a fucking tiger about to eat you and you have to survive, then all the rest of that stuff just goes right out the window. And there's no time to think about, like, man, that problem at work, whatever, you know, like you're about to die. So like all those other things become irrelevant just for that moment. But it then gives me the perspective after the fact. If I just had something happen, then I'm just like, man, the things that I'm struggling with right now are insignificant in comparison to some of the bigger issues. Like, you know, like you said, other people have had major traumas in their life when they were younger, that kind of thing. And it really puts things into perspective that, like you said, these are opportunities. These are minor things that are weighing on me in comparison to some of the bigger things I've dealt with in my life. Yeah, appreciate that. It's
Yeah,
timely. Thank you.
and I think some of those bigger battles that we've had in the past, prepares for the smaller, bigger battles we have in the future. Because I've been through hard things in the past.
Yeah,
I'm more like mentally and emotionally and spiritually, my capacity to handle these things is better and to understand them more deeply,
yeah,
understand the process. But one thing too is like I think everything is significant equally. I think the leaf is just as significant as the trunk, and the leaf is just as significant as the root, even though maybe the root does more, technically speaking. But if there's no roots, there's no trunk, there's no little leaf. So I think everything is like holistic in the sense of equal significance and meaning, is how I look at it. So I think that's probably a hard thing to understand or rationalize, but that's kind of how I just feel intuitively about things. Like Jesus and a kid dying with cancer for me is like the equal amount of significance and meaning. No one is kind of greater or lesser
mm, yeah,
because we're a whole, we're a one organism. We're all interconnected, we're all interlinked. So whatever you're going through is just as meaningful and significant as anybody else.
yeah. The thing that I was struggling with this morning is I don't really go out to bars anymore. I never really did much when I was younger either, but there was a period of time in my life where I was comfortable going to bars and dance clubs and that kind of thing. But now, I don't know. I've been exploring this a little bit more, questioning my rationalizations for why I feel the way I do, reevaluating because it's been a long time since I've had to even look at it and what it was back then when I stopped interacting with that scene. Is I was just kind of like, oh, you know, I'm I'm becoming more sensitive in good ways from my perspective, that my ability to sense things is increasing versus someone, oh, you're too sensitive, you need to like dial it back, you know. uh but being able to sense more, I've been finding that when I'm around a group of people, i I don't know who I'm sensing or what I'm sensing, or maybe I'm not sensing anything from those people. Maybe I'm being triggered by things I'm observing, and then what I'm sensing is inside me. I'm not sure, honestly, what the answer to that is. Because when people say like, "Oh, that person's energy is bad," I'm always kind of like, "Is it though, or is it you that is reacting to something inside of yourself that's they're a mirror, for instance? Maybe that person's energy is fine, you know." So I don't know. I'm careful with applying the labels there of where the energy is coming from and whose fault it is and blah blah blah. But long story short, I was in a situation last night where I was going into a club environment, not because I wanted to be there for myself per se, like, hey, I want to go out to a club, but someone invited me and it was for a birthday occasion. And I wouldn't say I felt obligated because I wanted to be there. But I was also aware, like, oh man, these environments for me are challenging now. Just because, not just because there's a lot of people there and I'm observing and feeling whatever it is I'm feeling, but it feels heavy to me a lot of the time, because when I'm in those environments, I'm perceiving and observing low vibration behavior. I don't know what else to call it. Just people that are, when you're observing it, you can see that they're actually not happy, but they're doing something they think is going to make them happy because that's a way to distract themselves from the thing that's not making them happy, let's say. So that's the kind of stuff that when I'm observing it and around it, I start to feel sad, mostly sad, just for my own memories of what life was like before I became more sensitive. I look back at that guy and I'm like, man, I'm sad for that guy. He didn't have the opportunity to experience the things I'm experiencing today, and I'm much happier today. So I'm sad for those people because they're not getting to experience the things that potentially I'm getting to experience just in my own mind. I don't know what their life's like, but that's just the read I get when I observe. And again, that might have nothing to do with those people. I might be totally misreading it, and it's just my own programming, my own experiences that are projecting that onto like a template or something. Who knows? But the reality is, I feel what I feel. I experience what I experience, and I can't pretend that I'm not feeling a certain way. Whoever it is that's the issue, I'm feeling it. So I was fine. I was actually having a little bit of fun. I went and danced and was having fun. And then the group wanted to go somewhere else, and this is a young person's birthday, and they're just kind of getting to experience the world. So they wanted to go to a strip club situation. And I was like, okay. And I swear, man, as soon as I walked into that place, I just felt this like wet blanket feeling of the people in the place. That they're just, it seemed like, even though people had smiles on their faces and they were dancing and having fun, it just felt like every person in there was extremely sad or extremely burdened by something. Maybe it's not sadness or anger or whatever. And I just started feeling nauseous, like physically ill after some time went by, and I had to leave. And that made me feel defeated. And the judge in my mind was just like upset, because it's always sucks to be that person that has to leave the group, because then everyone else in the group's like, what happened? Like, I don't like to draw attention to myself in that way, like, so I went home and I don't know, just got up this morning. I was just kind of meditating on it. What is it, like, do I need to expose myself to that type of energy more so that I'm not so easily affected by it? Or is it just a reality that I shouldn't put myself in those situations anymore so that I don't have to have that kind of experience? That's kind of where I was at with it when you made that statement to start this conversation, which then as soon as you said what you said, I was just like, this is my problem. Like, this is my issue. Like, okay, at least the tiger's not trying to kill me.
Yeah, so that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing. There's so much I could comment on that like connected with me. I really believe in my heart of hearts and souls of soul that coming to Peru saved my life. 100%. Even though my physical health isn't great, I have more energy this year than probably any time in the last 6 years. So my energy, not taking naps in the day, more motivated, just have more inspiration. I really believe coming here saved my life. And I believe if I was in America, I would either be dead or completely bedridden and would not be able to get out of bed at all. And I've contemplated that. I'm like, why is that? Because it's not like I've gotten some treatment here that's made my health incredible. And I really think it's because of resonance, compatibility. I'm just in an element where I fit in. I match the energy here. So it feeds me and I feed it. It's like I feel good walking around the town. I feel good, looking at the symbols and the artwork and the tapestries and the food and the cobblestone town and the church in the center and the emoliente, the drinks and the quinoa. It just matches me. It's like in residence. It gives me life because it fits me. And the last two places that I had lived, Phoenix, which the nature out there, you know, it's 115 degrees right now. There's no trees, there's no natural water. It's dead. You know, the desert's really pretty if you go out like towards Joshua Tree or Sedona, but in Phoenix, there's nothing. There's no like trees growing around there. You know,
Yeah.
that environment wasn't compatible to me. And then San Diego, I'm living at home with my parents. You know, I wake up in the morning, my dad's on business calls 6:37. It's not the greatest energy, if I have to be honest. I'm with my grandma, my mom. And I knew that because I had seen in my life that I always had got the energy to do the things that I needed to do. Like when there was a Sacred Sons men's event, I got the energy to go up and get there and do it. And things that really inspired me or connected with me, I could always have the energy to do. And I remember being in bed in Phoenix and San Diego, just going, I just don't really enjoy anything here, really. You know, I'd love to come down to the farmers market and then go to your place. That was something I really enjoyed and was one of the highlights of my week. One of the like best times of my life there, you know? And so I'm in a business relationship with somebody right now and really don't like the way he, I would say like his culture or his energy influences me and my other partner.
Mm.
He moves at a different pace and a different mentality. And initially I was saying like he rushes things, he hurries things, he rushes things. And I think after a little bit of contemplation, I wouldn't really say that he rushes things. I would just say that he moves at a different pace
Mm.
that is I don't like. So I'm not saying he rushes or he hurries. I'm saying you move at a different pace. I'm not saying it's too fast. I'm not saying you're hurrying. It's just at a pace that I don't like to work at. And that's kind of what I've kind of associated that with. So when it comes to you talking about these things, I think it's resonance.
Mm.
I think it's just we just don't resonate. Like if I go to America, it just doesn't feel good to me. It's not that I need to integrate some aspect of myself that's you know, being triggered, you know. I think after a long times, and I used to think that too and contemplate that too, especially with my grandma, because anytime I'd be about my grandma, I would just get so my nervous system would get so tense and so hard. And I think a lot of the times I was also trying to put myself in a position, let's say with my grandma, in a place I didn't need to be. You know, she's my grandma and I wanted to love her and I wanted to support her. And a lot of times I would sacrifice my own health in a sense just to be present with her. I'm like, it doesn't feel good for me to be around what she's talking about and how she's talking about it and the connection that we have. But I feel like, you know, my grandma, I don't know how long longer she's going to be here. I just want to spend time with her. And then at a certain point, I just couldn't do it anymore. I just like had to eliminate myself from her because no matter what I tried to do, like just calming my nervous system, breathing, my body just never felt good around her. So, and I've noticed that when things aren't in resonance, like I know with this partner that we have, we're not going to continue to do work, no matter if we want to or not. It's just a certain resonance that won't allow us to work together. Just it's like physics. It's like no matter how, and I've tried like in past with clients where like we tried to work together and we really wanted to, and it just could not work physically, like chemically, you know, like they really wanted to work with me and I really wanted to work with them, but there was not an agreement we could not come to, but it's also because we weren't really truly honoring how we were feeling about each other. And so, but like the deep of the deep comes out and says, hey, you guys, this is in alignment.
Yeah.
Sorry, even if you want to, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's what it is, man. I think it's resonance. You're just your body and your nervous system and your brain and your mentality is just not going to match certain atmospheres,
Yeah.
certain dimensions. It's a dimension, you know, when you go into a strip club, it's a different dimension. You walk into a Santo Daime church here, it's a different dimension. And there has to be some resonance, or you're just not going to even find these places, let alone being able to stay in them.
Yeah. 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 I appreciate that. And it's funny to me how the universe works sometimes. Well, actually all the time, but in this case, right before this series of events, I was at a sound healing and breathwork class that I had been invited to come to bring all my instruments and
Mm.
play and talk about resonance, man. Like this was a couple that put this on that I worked with. I met down in Mexico with for some of these plant medicine ceremonies, and we started another kind of version of that, catering to Americans, and we had our first ceremony a couple months ago. I can't remember if I told you about that or not, but um, this was them wanting to expand out of plant medicine and into breath work, and wanted to integrate sound healing into the breath work and combine those two. And so they put on this event, and it was like 15 people, and it was 4 of us there facilitating. And he started them off on some breath exercises. And this was the first time we were doing this. And none of us, I mean, I know how to play the instruments, and I know a few breathing exercises that I've learned from Kundalini yoga and other places. But none of us are like, licensed breathwork, whatever therapists, so we're just sort of winging it. And it was just like the experience I had with working with them at the ayahuasca ceremony, that once we were in the moment and doing it, talk about resonance. I mean, geez, like none of us were using our minds. It was all just flow. And there was some amazing, amazing stuff happening that all of us are looking at each other like, what the fuck? Like these people are just breathing. There's some music playing, some chill ceremonial kind of music, in low volume. And these people are just doing a breath exercise, and but it's all about that repetition and almost like a meditative state that a person achieves. And then when we were adding in these elements of sound, and it's like it's like ruptures are happening for people, and some people are laughing, some people are crying, some people are screaming. It's just breath. There's no influence other than just their own experience combined with the sound. And the woman that this couple that put this on, she created a little altar with some different incenses and some different power items. And one of the things that was there, this is right before the ceremony started, I noticed this. One of the things that was there was an obsidian blade.
Mm.
And I saw it, and I was like, wow. And we're in the Tracena of Flint right now, obsidian. So I don't know, I was just conscious of that. And yesterday, my cat's meowing a confirmation. Uh, Yesterday was the 8th day of the 13 days, which is the ceremonial day. And that wasn't something that they planned for. That just aligned. So I was holding that blade before the ceremony, and I was just like, I don't know, man. Resonance. All I can say is resonance, And this is not something I've ever felt guided to do before, although I've never had an obsidian blade around during ceremony before, I guess. So it wasn't available to me. But at some point during the ceremony, this person was writhing about. It looked like a second chakra kind of thing. They were just twisting all about their midsection, and just you could tell they were in it, And I felt I went over with a rattle, and I was doing some stuff with a rattle, and then it was just like this strong, go get that blade, thought form, intuition, I don't know, guidance, resonance. And I was like, what am I gonna do with the blade? Just don't worry about that. Just go get the blade, like that was the kind of the back and forth in my head. And I was like, okay. And I went and got the blade, grabbed some mapacho, and I like blew mapacho. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't like, okay, I'm going to blow some mapacho, but I blew some mapacho, and it kind of formed this little layer over top of her. And then I just like slashed through the layer of smoke, like in this weird Tai Chi kind of, I've never practiced with a knife, or I'm not like skilled in combat, none of that stuff. I mean, I've seen plenty of movies and whatever, but it was just like this, almost like a dance of movement through the smoke with the blade. And she settled. She calmed down. I was just like, what the fuck? And then this other woman was like in her head, like she was just like, oh, she's literally saying like, and I felt like there was this green stone that was on the altar. It wasn't jade, it was something else, kind of more light green, translucent. And I picked it up and I put it on her forehead. And I just said in her ear, I said, don't resist what you're feeling. It's love. It's love. Again, I didn't think I need, oh, she's resisting love and I need to tell her, you know what I mean? Like these are not things that I'm consciously planning out. It's just in the moment, I have this sensation of like, do this, do that. And I'm following it now, where in the past I would judge it, be like, no, 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 that's silly. You know, like my mind would tell me that it was silly and I wouldn't do it. But I did that, and then I put the rock in her hand and I said, just feel that love. That's you, that's love. And again, she calmed, like that tension went away from her face. Just little things like that. And then later she kind of got back into it, and I felt guided to take my third eye sixth chakra bowl, and I played it. You know, she's laying down and I've got it right over her forehead and I'm playing it, and I'm like I'm slowly building it up, and she starts to tone with it
Mm.
vocally. And it's like something was like a thread being pulled out of her
Mm.
mouth or something. So it's just like, you know, like I'm playing the bowl and the bowl's getting louder. She's getting louder, but I'm not. Oh, I need to get the louder. You know, it just all happened. It was literally magic. It was one of the most amazing hour and a half, 2 hours that I've ever experienced personally. And there have been many of those experiences like that during ceremonies, but never with just breathwork. Granted, I haven't been in a lot of breathwork classes, so I imagine I've heard plenty of times and I've experienced a few times the power of the breath and how it can take us to those same places that the plant medicines can take us. But it was amazing. It was unbelievable. It was like one of the most amazing experiences of my life that I had. And then I go into maybe the opposite situation energetically, where I'm doing my best to resonate, but it's not. And like I said, I was able to dance a little bit and not just not focus so much on the environment. But then when it became more focused in my face with the strip club environment, then I had that reaction, which was more or less the opposite of the reaction I'm having a few hours earlier, where I'm watching these amazing magical things unfold and I'm feeling this like incredible bliss. Yeah, it was an interesting night. 8 day ceremonial day, and combined with the sun sign serpent, which you know is the body energy.
That's beautiful. I remember someone telling me this story. I don't know if I'm going to get it right, but Jesus came to somebody. I think it was a boy, and he was sick or he was dead. I think he might have been dead actually. And the boy was laying down on a bed, and Jesus got on the bed and laid on top of him, like matched his like body position or something, you know. So it's like belly's on his belly, face on his face, hands on his hand on top, and he's like blowing into his mouth. And the kid wakes up and becomes alive. And I only share that because the pastor that was making this point was going, that's some weird shit. If we saw that today, we saw some full grown man get on top of a boy and lay on him and blow into his mouth, like mouth to mouth. We'd be like, that is some weird shit. But he's like, the boy came back to life. Like, so I'm not caring about how he did it. I'm caring about like what came from it. Boy, like the fruits, it came back to life, you know, like, so, you know, when you're blowing the smoke or, you know, you're doing something that's abnormal to like what you would ever done or like what you would ever think or what would ever even make sense, you know. I don't know where these things come from. It's a mystery to me, you know, like even for Jesus to like do this, you know. I'm sure the same way it worked through you is worked through Jesus. He was just intuitively guided to do this thing, didn't get in the way. And the spirit can, maybe the spirit can work through you when you don't have that ego, when you don't have that judgment, or needing to understand. You're just like allowing nature and the force of God to move through you. So,
That's the way it
and
feels.
yeah, and I think for me, I think like all of life is happening like that. Like all of life, we're in like the perfect flow. It just sometimes it doesn't feel like that. Because I think it's like holistic again. And I think like when we do some daimi ceremonies here that are called illumination works. And when we do the illumination works, it's like anything goes. Like you're allowed to completely express in any way that comes through you. And it's fucking, it's wild. You know, it's like the most wildest shit. And there's like an incredible amount of like alignment and flow when you're in those states. When you're completely uninhibited and you're allowing like the strong force of spirit to be working through you, it feels like that's like we're like all we all don't know what we're getting into. But it's like once we drink and then like you're saying, like a ceremony starts and your time disappears, like awareness disappears, consciousness, you're just like in some other ceremony and flow and like concert, and you're just you know, a vessel to be used, and it feels like exactly what you're saying. And I think all these other times in our life are like the same thing. And I think like what came to me was I think a lot of us didn't come here to match the world that we came into. I think a lot of us came here to change the world. And so I think it's natural that a lot of us don't have a resonance with what we grew up with or what's being taught or what we learn, because we're here to bring something different, and live something different and be something different. And that's a very uncomfortable process in my own experience, because it's like, yeah, it's showing me like, oh, like I think there's probably a natural mechanism that wants to move our body and spirit to that complete alignment all the time where we're not really in resistance. I think that's probably a natural mechanism of the body and of the soul and of the spirit, like back into order and harmony with God.
Mhm.
So there's this natural, like, I don't like the way this family's living, or I'm living, or this culture, or this city, or this strip club, you know, and I need to move over here. But it's like the culture and the city, or the people and the friends and the family aren't where we're at. And that's uncomfortable. And it's supposed to be that way. Like when I've been thinking about talking to my partner who, you know, I'm not really in resonance with how he's leading or influencing, it's like the same thing I would say to him, like, I don't think you're doing the right things to get us to where we want to go. Right. I can guarantee you that he would say the same thing to me. He's like, I think what you want to do and how you want to take it is the exact opposite. And what I want to do is actually going to help us get there. So, you know, it goes back to this thing where I'm like, I'm not right. And he's not wrong. And he's not right. It's just a different of perspective. It's like the person on the 23rd level can't see what the 6th level is seeing. And we can't understand each other. We've had unique life experiences. We're unique people. And so once again, as I grow older, I'm like, hey, it's not about right or wrong. It's not about that you're doing what's worse and I'm going to do something that's better. Um, you're rushing. I'm more still and present. It's none of that. Just like a different resonance and perspective and different place. And I guess I just want to do my best to honor that in such in the most compassionate and soft manner that I can, and not come in with judgments like, you're not doing what we need to get there, you know, or like, I don't think your way is the best. It's just like we're not matching. We just have a different agreement on what's going on. And just honoring that, you know, it's like not personal, it's not a judgment. I'm sure him doing the same thing in a different scenario would be great. But for me and where I'm at, it doesn't feel good. And so I can't continue to be here for that, you know.
Is that something that like you'll have to find a different partner, or is it something that you'll be able to just shift frequencies or something so that you guys are more resonant?
Well, the thing in life that I've learned to do is just try not to do anything.
Hmm.
That's like, I feel like to me, the more that I grow up, that it seems like the greatest skills, like not trying to do anything. Like I'm saying, I think a lot of people, and I'm speaking about this partner again, to me, and I'm not saying he's wrong, but he wants an outcome. He wants to get somewhere. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I think a lot of the uncomfortability that I'm feeling is the difference between where he wants to be and where we are.
Hmm.
And that creates a lot of stress and tension and anxiety because we're not where he wants to be. I am under the influence that, and I wouldn't tell this to anybody directly, but I go, hey, maybe we're supposed to fail. Maybe this is supposed to just flop because it's going to lead you in a different direction, me in a different direction. Maybe we're going to learn things here so we don't repeat them for the client that's going to succeed. So I'm not trying to make things succeed. I am trying to do what I'm called to do. And in a sense, it's so paradoxical because everything I am doing is trying to make it succeed, but I'm not worried or concerned about us succeeding or meeting our expectations or getting to where we want to go. I'm just doing what I'm doing.
Mm.
And so it's like I keep just getting that over and over of just like trying to do nothing. Like anything you add on top of it, of anything that doesn't need to be there, just makes everything more worse, is how I see it. So I'm just always trying to let things play out. So are we going to need a new partner? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is he going to leave by himself? I don't know. Do we need to get some more money somewhere else? I don't know. It like hasn't got there yet, you know? So it's just like allowing things to like unfold little by little, little by little. And it is uncomfortable. Like there's definitely like some discomfort I'm feeling and stuff, but life really plays itself out, especially if you let it, especially if you allow it to. So
Yes.
it's not really like I need to intervene. I always see God working in the highest way possible. And usually the way God does that is giving you the experience that looks like the opposite of it working out best way possible.
Yeah.
Because as you know, Patrick, and I don't want to seem like I don't have these two because I know I have them in my own way, but people, they're looking to get something to prove something to themselves. And I had this meditation and ayahuasca ceremony and a daime ceremony, and I was thinking of somebody that I know, and I just feel like he's trying to prove something to the world and to himself. They're kind of about both. Like, hey, I want to prove myself to the world. And I go, he's always going to find things that no matter what he does or how good he gets into it, it'll never be enough. It's like because you're trying to prove yourself, it can never be proved. And the world doesn't care. I was thinking about the thing that I think he wants to improve at, to prove himself to others and to himself. I'm like, no one would care. You could literally, he's not trying to make money, let's say, but I'm like, if he made $1 billion, no one would care. No
Yeah.
one would think of him any different. And it would just like, it's an endless battle that you can't win when you're trying to prove yourself. And it's like you have to own your greatness because there are things that we're all great at, that we're all geniuses, that we're all gifted at, that are all natural for us. And I'm like, you need to own that. And then you don't have to prove yourself. Then the world actually reflects, your greatness and who you are, and you start to rise.
Mm.
And then the thing is that I'm learning is I'm not trying to teach him that. I'm trying to be by his side, allowing him to learn it by himself without me ever mentioning that. And if I need to say something like something, but it happens naturally, and I'm like, hey, I think you need to step in to be more a coach and authority, and you've learned a lot, and you can have something that really helps people, like I've said to him, then I say that's natural. I'm not trying to hold anything back or push anything forward once again.
Appreciate that, man. The no plan.
The no plan, it's the best plan, because
It's the only plan.
it's the only plan. And the resistance is when people are trying to judge that plan or alter that plan that's going on that plan, no matter what you want it to be or do anyways. And then you're never fully present and you never actually learn from it, you never grow, you never allow it to take you where it's trying to.
Yeah.
There's an inherent lack of trust in that perspective.
Yeah. Matt Kahn, I think it's Matt Kahn, talks about that in one of his talks. He mentions like that the ego is more than happy, loves, in fact, to go along with the divine plan as long as the divine plan doesn't conflict with what the ego's plan is. And then it's like this might be my embellishment from what he says here, but I feel like it's a flip over, like 180 degrees the other direction, hard. burn hard when the ego realizes the plan is not going the way that the ego wants it to go. It's like it goes from being like, I love this plan to fuck this plan, like in an instant. It's so, at least for me anyway, I notice that inside of myself when I see my ego resisting what's happening, when a minute ago it was happy, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like it's all part of that, It's like we're all these waves and going through these emotions, and we're just trying to learn to ride the motherfuckers. It's like I remember talking stuff with that girl, year and a half ago. That was super fucking intense. You don't know how you got. I don't even know how I got into that. Didn't know how it is going, and then how it's going to end. And it's super tumultuous, super severe. And then leaving my business partner, and then leaving my only client. Never crossed my mind when we were having those conversations that um I came to Peru in June, so we were probably having those around December, January. So February, March, April, May, 5 months later, I would be in Peru, moving there. Been here over a year now, engaged, have a house and residency, and having a connection with Christ with this diamond. It's like
I'm so happy for you, man.
thanks, bro. Yeah, feels good, man. Feels like I have a life here, and I have space to grow. Like this house cost, I think less than $800. I couldn't be in a place in San Diego with the amount that I could work and the energy that I had to make enough money to be in a place that could allow myself to heal and to grow.
Yeah.
It's just not the right place to be with my mother and father. Then $800 in San Diego is going to get me
Yes.
some room in some house, and I got to take the bus to wherever. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, and you got an entire house for that amount. It really does represent the difference, right? Like, the amount of space you have for the amount of money you're paying, and then you look at what you would be able to do with that same amount of money here. It's like the size of this room is what you'd have compared to a huge house and a property, not just the house. And the whole house is yours. It's not like you're sharing the house with other people, right? Like, it's amazing.
we're the first persons to live in this house.
That's cool too.
Brand new, big yard on a river, fireplace outside, fireplace inside, washer. Everything is I have four bathrooms, all have showers. I
Wow.
could take like a dump in like any room of the house. Um, yeah, no, it's allowing me to get on my feet, to be on like getting on my feet and get my life going, that it was just too heavy and too incompatible in America for me, you
Yeah.
know? And but that's the thing. It's like my partners, because business is a big part of my life. It's like these people want to get somewhere. I want to get somewhere, right? We want to get somewhere. But I think for most people, you have no idea how to get there. Like zero idea. Not even like a 1%, 5%. And maybe you do a little bit, but like most time you don't know how to get to where you want to go. You don't know what needs to change. You don't know. If you did, you'd already be there, or you'd be making very steadily progress.
Yeah.
It's like something new that if I came to Peru, this would happen. That I could, my old house in Cuya Grande was only $250 a month, and I was fucking stoked with that. I
Yeah.
was like, this is fucking, dude, I got two levels, kitchen, nice yard, it's like
Yes.
something. I didn't know that. I didn't think before I came to Peru how cheap it was, and I could possibly stay here, let alone live. Like, but something new, some higher awareness of knowledge and intelligence and wisdom new. And it guided me to the right place when I needed it and when I could make it happen. Because the time that I came to Peru was the first time in 6.5 years that I had the time and money. Never before in the last 6 time. And it was like relationship broke, business client broke, business partner broke. I said this, I have no attachments here, no cords. I'm completely free right now. So, and I have the $3,000. I can go to put a little bit of money on my credit cards. If there's a time for me to go, this would be it. And I can't breathe. I'm in a lot of pain. I can't rest. I can't sleep. And it's like, like it's kind of profound, like that I've had that experience, like in such a drastic way, and having my life change so much that there's like incredible wisdom there that like needs to be mined, because it's such a great lesson for people. It's like everything is going perfectly when it doesn't happen the way you want, and it's like the greatest crisis is going to bring you the greatest transformation. Like I actually heard a pastor say this the other day. He said, when difficult things come, it's evidence that the opposite has happened.
Hmm.
That's
I like that.
fucking hard for people to understand or believe. And that's why they don't get there. It's like, because it's that perspective shift of going, I'm not doing the right things. This is wrong. This is bad. I'm a failure. I need to try to remedy this. And it's going, no, if you could just use this and learn from it, and know this is perfect and it's helping you get to that other side, it becomes like this door in front of you that is masked as the place you shouldn't enter, like devil's the devil's world. But it's like just through that door is another expansion, another level, another more abundance and freedom. But it's like you have to allow yourself to go through that tumultuous process of being burned and being consumed, and like crumbling into the ashes and molting to be reborn. And we don't know how to like die to that self that's trying to hold on to how it should be and how we want it and where we want to go and who we are and who we want to be, to grow into a greater self that's beyond our own requirements from a place of lack or insecurity.
Hmm. Yeah, it's well said. It reminds me, I was talking with a friend, I think it was just yesterday, about the role of Wetiko in the mind, and reframing that process as a bad, from seeing it as a bad thing, something we should resist, to seeing it as an ally for a greater purpose. In the moment, it can't be seen that way. It only can be seen as an adversary that we have to, in the more traditional sense, we have to slay the dragon in order to achieve the abundant goal. But I feel like that's an old way of looking at it. I feel like the real answer is to align with it, to recognize that it's not there to harm me or kill me or prevent me from achieving my goal. It's there as my ultimate teacher, and its job is to be very aware of my current state of awareness, let's say, and judge whether I'm ready or not to hold the gold that comes from the expansion. I have to be ready to hold that. If I'm not ready to hold it, that's like the Greek myth about I can't remember the character's name, but he goes and he flies too close to the sun and his wings melt.
Icarus or Icarus?
Icarus, yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it's just like he's not ready. He wasn't ready for the gift of flight because he did the one thing he wasn't supposed to do. He flew too close to the sun, and the wax melted and all that. And so the point I was making was that Wetiko, the ego, it's our greatest ally potentially for the long-term goal of ascension, and that the job that it's doing is to watch us and make sure that we're ready, and it won't allow us to come to that place until we're ready. And so up until that moment we're ready, it seems like our greatest adversary. But then the moment we're ready, we realize it's our greatest ally. And it's only in that moment of transformation that we achieve that reframing of the relationship. And that's, to me, that's what I call loving the Wetiko, you know, like that's why I talk about loving this seemingly evil thing, because it's only when we choose to perceive it with love that it becomes possible to love it, because it's so hated, it's so evil, it's so vile, it's the worst of the worst energetically. How could we possibly love something like that? But like Jesus talks about, you know, we must love our enemy. So
Dude, these are, I mean, I think these topics are so deep and so nuanced, you know, because I think, yeah, I agree with everything you said, and I think that stuff's mind blowing to a person that's never tapped into this type of meditation or philosophy, right? You're saying my number one adversary is my number one ally. Like that's like these paradoxes are just like, wait, what?
yeah.
That my number one enemy is my number one ally. Like that like to hold those two together, which I think is what Christ represented, that I heard someone speak up on recently about being the balance between Ahriman and Lucifer. Like Christ was the balance, saying, hey, both these forces are necessary, but it's being right, like in right relationship and balance in between them, and not being completely materialistic and not being completely spiritual. But Christ was like this center point between the two. And it's such a interesting perspective to get to, where you're like, my number one enemy is my number one ally. And I think I think the way I got there was because if I didn't have that perspective, the enemy would keep taking me down. Because this is the cool thing, the enemy does want to hurt you. Let's talk about the Sound of Freedom or something like this. Like there's some real like dark energies in the world, some like freaky, serious, and we've experienced some of our own traumas where you're like, damn, dude, that's some nasty stuff, you know? So let's just pretend there's an enemy. He fucking does want to hurt you. He does want to bring you down. He wants you to feel hopeless. He wants you to feel like we're ruining the planet and that we shouldn't have kids because it's not worth, and it's all these negative things that is looking upon the self as wrong and as bad and and it's like, and then you create that. That's the only way it can be, if that's how you see yourself and see others and see the world. If you see yourself as, man, we can make this world a better place. We can actually create children that help and support other children and not hurt other children. We can create better ecosystems and, create better crops, and we can create better schools because we're creative and we're adaptive and we do have love and we do support each other and life is beautiful. Then you're going to create that too. So, and that's why, like, as I'm going along, I really think this is kind of my meditation. The enemy only becomes your greatest ally if you have Christ. Now, I feel like I'm building some sort of specific connection with Christ. And maybe, let's say for you, Patrick, you don't. But I think that if you are operating in the perspective that you just shared, you're still, in my contemplation, I'm not saying you are, you're not, just my own meditation, that like you are working through Christ. Maybe you don't call it to Christ directly. Maybe you're not in this specific relationship or communion with Christ. But I think when Christ, this is how I interpret it, don't know if it's right. When Christ is like, hey, they're like, I am the way, the truth, and the light. No one can get to the Father through me. Anybody who's learning to get through and overcome or build wisdom upon that is allowing what you're saying to go through life in that way, I'm like, you're working through Christ. That's the way I kind of think about it. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I think when he said that, because I think that's what Christ represents and is. I believe Christ came from God, was God, is God, lived in the Son. I believe Christ was like the Spirit of the Son. This is my meditation because it's most resonance with me, was the actual Spirit of the Son, because as this guy on Aubrey Marcus podcast was saying, is the Son represents all life and all heat for all our universe. So without the Son, there is no life. So it just as like the fractal is from God becoming the Son, because without the Son, there is no life. And the Spirit of the actual Son came into the body of Jesus. So I see Jesus and Christ differently. And I think this is esoteric Christianity. So Jesus is a man, fucking high level motherfucker, and was able, when he became baptized around 30, to receive the Spirit of the Son, the Spirit of Christ, to be an embodiment of the perfect will of God. and to teach. And then through a sacrifice, the spirit of the son became alchemized with the earth. And I was reading a book by Steiner that said, because the spirit of the son came, was crucified, and the spirit of the son then joined with the spirit of the earth is the body of Christ. That's what Rudolf Steiner was saying. So I think because that's what Christ is, if anybody's operating in that way, whether they call it Christ or not, I think that they are operating through and with Christ. And I'd like to think that, I would like to think that many cultures have been operating through Christ at different periods at different times without us saying Christ and not associating with Jesus, you know? I would like to think, and I don't know if it's true, that like some of the Hawaiians and some of their ancient sacred teachings and ceremonies and Ho'oponopono and just things that just innately feel pure and beautiful and true and helpful is coming through this Christ energy or connection, you know. And I've heard people call like Christ had been here in other civilizations and he was called different things. And this Rosicrucian on Aubrey Marcus's podcast was saying that people at different times who were clairvoyant could see the spirit of the sun, who are like I don't know if it's clairvoyant, people could see auras and stuff. They would look into the sun and could actually see this being, you know. So that's what I would like to think, because when I'm really touched by certain cultures and certain traditions, and I'd like to think that at certain times they were connecting to this divine energy in different ways at different times in their different culture and their different languages for them that represented the similar thing or to work through. And then obviously think like Shipibo, for instance, you know, and like there's a lot of tribal cultures with a lot of witchcraft and a lot of brujos and dark stuff that like has nothing to do with God or Christ. And it's like, hey, we have our own magic down here with the elements and the plants, and I can use my own intention and will and, you know, to like create harm. So yeah, that's kind of my contemplation at the time.
I appreciate that, man. I was having this conversation about the role of Wetiko as the adversary and the ally in the context of uh, talking about kind of overlaying the chakras and talking about how the third chakra, which is the power chakra, this is where the ego lives in the mind, but sits on its throne, as it were, as a metaphor, at the third chakra. And the job there is to observe the energy coming up from the second chakra and judge it, pure, unpure. If it's pure, it's allowed to enter the heart. If it's impure, it has to go back down to the root and come up again and start again. And that's that purification process from the root through the second chakra into the third chakra. And if we, like you were saying, the enemy can literally harm us and try to kill us. And the whole idea there being, it's because what we were bringing with our action at that moment in time represented something somehow that wasn't pure. And what I have learned to attend to in that is that the lack of purity is proportional to the amount that my ego believes that it's the one doing the thing versus standing there and channeling the energy through, which to me is the Christ energy, spirit of God, whatever it is that we all have access to at all times. And if it's coming through and we're humble and we know that it's coming through us and we're not doing it, what we're doing is observing and witnessing and being the best container we can be to allow it to come through, then it will come through, and it'll be like what you're describing with Jesus or any of these other amazing teachers throughout history. Like people just see this light coming out of them, and there's just this undeniable like draw that people have to these pure beings. And that the lesson, the reason why Wetiko is ultimately the ultimate ally is that when it tries to kill us, when it tries to harm us, when it tries to push us down, it's teaching us about humility. It's teaching us to remember that we're not the ones doing this. Stop thinking you're doing it. If you recognize that what's coming through you is this divine gift, this Christos, the anointing oil of spirit, enlightening your temple, your body, then you're in right relationship with the energy, and then you can shine like the sun. And that's the other thing that's cool about that, talking about the balance, is that's Ophiuchus. That's the constellation of Ophiuchus. 1 foot standing on the back of Scorpio, the other foot standing in between Scorpio and Sagittarius, which is the black hole in the center of the galaxy, which represents the portal to the other realm. So 1 foot in the physical realm, 1 foot in the spiritual realm. Lean too much into the physical, the scorpion's going to sting you for stepping too hard on its back. Lean too far into the other side, you'll fall into the black hole, and your body will still be alive, but your mind will be lost. I think that's kind of what happens with schizophrenic, so and so labeled schizophrenic people. That if I have a conversation with somebody that's seemingly crazy, and I don't attempt to listen to what they're saying in any kind of literal sense, I just listen as if it's a metaphor, then they make a lot of sense what they're saying. It's not applicable practically in the world per se, but they're not crazy, like lost. They're just so far into the spiritual realm and have not, they're not on the bridge between the two. And the Ophiuchus, the lesson of Ophiuchus is, okay, well, this seems like an impossible stance. 1 foot on the scorpion, 1 foot on the black hole. How do you stay there? And that's Ophiuchus is holding the serpent and going where the serpent goes, not trying to fight the serpent, which is the devil, Wetiko, whatever, the ego, not trying to incapacitate it by holding it behind the neck like you do with a snake. You can holding it and being humble and showing it love by saying, what do you need? Go, I'm going to go with you wherever we go. Let's go together. And I recognize that I'm not the one leading. I'm the one aligning with the plan, and the serpent has the plan before we do. So I'm going to go where it goes. And if I stay in that balance, then that's what Ophiuchus is there to represent in the sky as the 13th constellation, which is the Christ energy in the story of the Zodiac. And that's where it goes from ultimate adversary to ultimate ally, is in that humble dance with the flow.
Yeah, I think what a thought just came in my head is that, like, the devil has the same attributes as God, but in the opposite way. I don't know if this is true. It's just a thought that came to my mind. So, meaning, like, let's say the devil influences people to murder people for selfish reasons. But I feel like I feel like it's responsible and just as pure and righteous if, like, somebody came into my house and was like trying to kill me and my wife, and I killed them. But it was to defend myself. It was like, dude, I don't want to hurt you, don't want to hurt anybody. But now it's gotten to a point where it's like we can't flee. The time you're like, hurt it, you're gonna kill us, and it's like I got to do something, where it's like that. Where so I think it's like it's the same energy that on one side is pure and on the other side is distorted or deception. It's like, hey, your ability to kill someone isn't bad, and maybe you have to do that. Maybe you have to get in a fight with somebody. Maybe that was what love would do. Saying, hey, dude, like like boundaries, step away, like dark spirit, like, hey, not cool. I have no disrespect. I have no problem with you. Don't get any closer. You don't have no right to, like, influence on my sovereignty or my free will or my own body. And so but I feel like it's like the adversary who shows you, because I think for me, the reason I'm bringing this up, because when I grew up, I thought God was like this, love was like this soft and like never created tension with anybody, it never created problems with anybody, it never created like challenge or confrontation with anybody, because that's just the way I interpreted probably from my upbringing and not liking that type of energy. But maybe it's like I feel like the devil's trying to show me who God is through himself. It, bringing things out of me that I didn't want to bring out because I've judged and condemned, like, this is good, this isn't of God, this is bad, but really it is. It just has to be utilized in the proper way.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe some guy's got bad energy and he's like doesn't look right and he looks like he wants to hurt you, and you're like, brother, just give me a hug. but you're like, this guy's gonna like stab you or punch you if you do that. It's like, hey, maybe you got to be like, dude, don't fucking come at me or I'm gonna fucking kill you. I don't want any problems, but I will fucking do something. You know, just that energy alone, that spirit might be like, all right, I'm gonna get out of here because I don't want to like actually, you know, but the people too, I've seen this too, like the people who do look like they can't defend themselves. Those are the people that get hurt, the people that look like they can't protect, the people that look vulnerable. You know, usually those spirits are the one that are feeding on them. Like you're not gonna, most negative spirits who want to harm people aren't gonna choose the jacked jiu-jitsu mixed martial arts guy walking down the street. You know, they might say something, but they're like, okay, I've got to look for the easy prey.
Right.
And then one other thing I wanted to bring up that you brought up was you mentioned something about being ready.
Yeah.
And I really feel like my chronic pain has building a capacity in me, building a hole in me to receive. It's like, you know, if I would have started, kept on the path I was doing it 7 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to, I don't think I would have received God's plan for me, God's glory for me, God's health for me, God's wealth for me, you know? And it's like this chronic pain has been creating emptiness in me. And it's like, if you're not empty, you can't receive. I was listening to a pastor this morning. He said, God hates a proud look. He's like, not only does he just, now he's like, pride's above everything, above murderers and this. He's like, pride is the worst because when you have pride, he said, when you have a proud look, it says you don't need anything. So you're saying, I don't need anything. And then God's gonna be like, okay, you don't need anything. I'm not gonna give you anything. He's like, if you don't need something, you can't receive it. If you don't want something, you can't get it. So I think for my chronic pain, I'm like, I've needed healing. I've needed inspiration. I needed life. I need life. I need things that are able for me to grow. So it's building a capacity, and capacity I think has to do with readiness, right? Like what you're saying, and humility. I think humility breeds capacity too, and breeds readiness, and these things work and combine. I actually said that he didn't say that in his sermon, but I said humility creates capacity. You know, it's like you're not ready to receive something if you don't have the capacity to receive it. If you don't know how to handle those energies, right? It's like the Fantasia, you know, it's like he was wielding powers and magic, but he didn't know how to contain them, didn't know how to channel them, didn't know how to structure them, didn't know how to discipline them, didn't know how to keep them in balance. It's like, whoa, give me $500,000 3, 4, 5 years ago. Give me a million. You know, now I'm like, I don't know how to fucking manage that because I haven't learned to manage myself. So if I can't manage myself, how am I going to manage a team? How am I going to manage circumstances and communications and problems? And if I haven't learned to deal with those emotions and feelings and sensations within me. So
Hmm.
got to be really careful with power. I heard one pastor was saying that when God said, don't eat of the tree of knowledge, I think that was the tree they're not supposed to eat. I don't know if you know, but if that's the one, the tree of knowledge.
Yeah.
The pastor was saying, the God was saying, you can't eat that tree now. He didn't say you can't eat the tree ever. He was saying you just can't eat it right now because you're not ready for the knowledge that tree would give you. You need to be prepared. You need to be groomed to be able to receive that knowledge. Or else, if you get that knowledge before you're ready, it's like it's going to taint you. It's going to distort you. And it's like, we see that with the world. We see people who become rich and famous and have everything in the worldly world that we all would strive for, even just, you know, a little bit of, well, fuck, Justin Bieber could have any girl he wants in fucking any country. He could fly on any private jet. He could buy any supercar. He could buy any mansion on any beach or jungle. And, you know, let's just say sometimes he doesn't look very healthy, or he doesn't look very stable, or he doesn't look very happy, or he doesn't look very at peace or fulfilled. So it's like if you get power before you're ready to use it, that to the degree that you're not ready to use it will be to the degree that power crumples you and changes you and magnifies you and distorts you. So it'd be like this. Like what's coming to my mind is if I was a father, right, and my son said, "Dad, I want to run the company one day. I want to run Golf Influencer one day. That would be awesome. Can I be like the vice president?" I'd be like, "Cool, yeah, son. why don't you start down there at the cleaning with the janitors? You know, go around the offices at night, could clean and pick the trash up and clean the toilet. And then, you know, let's say he does that for a month or two. He's like, and I'm like, all right, son, you're doing a good job. They said you're doing great. So now I'm going to move you to the shipping station. You know, you're going to learn to package things, put things in the boxes, put the cards in there, label them, make sure, check all the equipment, make sure all our products are, you know, high quality. And I'm going to make sure like he goes through the company properly to see all the different levels, to understand the quality and standard, to understand all the angles before just being like, hey, dude, yeah, well, be vice president, come be head of marketing, head of finance, head of whatever. It's like, dude, there needs to be like, and so if you're given success before you have the character to handle it maturely and with wisdom, it's just going to be more of your demise. And I'll say this, it's harder to get out of it. Like there's this one streamer that I watch a lot because he interviews Andrew Tate a lot, and everyone treats him like a boy because he just acts like a boy. He just doesn't act very mature and you know, like his own person, very integrated. But it's like, and Andrew always is always like, dude, like, how do you make a fucking living? Like he's like a friend, but he's like, dude, you're so fucking retarded, and all you do is stream. I don't know how the fuck you live and how you make money. It's so weird. And it's like, and I've seen that happen where people get really successful on YouTube, and then that identity gets wrapped in that. They're making so much money that it's like they don't have a real reason to change. The crisis isn't there. And if they just keep playing this role of asking you know, being that little child, polarizing, triggering, silly, stupid comments, and then that gets them money, it's like they just don't have a real reason to get the most out of themselves, or, you know, really become something in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely true of my early journey. Like for me, the waking up process is the discovery of power, personal power, recognizing that I've got all this potential that has been sitting dormant in my body and my life and my mind, mostly as negative judgments about what I could do or what's possible for me. But then it's like I connect with the Christos, if you will, connect with spirit, and all of a sudden it's like, no, you can literally be anything you want to be. It's just a question of application, determination, and humility, and all these other things we learn along the path. But when I first, I, I, I remember it from my own perspective, but it would be entertaining, I'm sure, to talk to people that I was around back in 2011, 2012, 2013. And then ultimately in 2014 was like kind of the crash, the crumpling of, as a result of the distortion of attempting to wield that power well before I had the training to do so. I was unaware, more or less, that there was a need for training, because where my ego was at the time, I believed that I had already received all the training I needed, and I got this. And it had to be that way. I say that because it was that way, and I don't believe that there's anything like there's a plan unfolding that none of us can modify. So instead of thinking, oh, it could have been this way or could have been that way, like I choose to say, no, it was that way so that I would learn the lessons that I learned as a result of that distortion. And even though within my perspective, I didn't see or feel the distortion, it was apparent in my environment as a result of the reactions of the people that I was close to at the time. So, and I needed, I needed, you know, it's what happened. So it's what I needed. I needed to be crushed, ground up into dust in order to rebuild as best I could without that distortion present. And that was a long process.
I think the culture that does the training the best, but maybe it's not in balance again, but that's probably because it's originated from its own culture, and it's every culture is different, you know. I think it's the Asian culture. I think the Asian culture, and obviously, you know, not the whole Asian culture. I'm thinking of like the spiritual, ancient Asian culture of like I also see videos of kids, you know, doing some squat position, 6, 7-year-old kids and just crying, they're just in some horse stance with their hands together and they're in their little monk suits and they're just tears rolling down their face, incredible physically demanding challenges that are like teaching them to not to like choose a mentality and action based off what you're thinking or feeling. It's like you're the owner, you're the master, because especially in our culture right now, it's like I'm offended or I don't like the way you're talking to me. And now that's changing the way I'm going to feel about myself, and no master. This is why Donald Trump, I'm just thinking out loud, is like a master. He's like, there's nothing anybody could say that's going to change the way I feel about myself. He's so comfortable with who he is, and he's not looking to please anybody or to get anything from other people. Is I'm just speaking out loud from kind of a superficial, shallow look at small clips I might see in here. There, he's just like, and that's what probably so triggering to people. He's like, I'm not looking for your approval. I'm just gonna say it how it is, and he's not saying you need to speak to me this way or speak to me that way, or I'm gonna feel differently, so I can feel differently about myself. So I think especially men. I don't know about women as much, but I'm sure maybe they do too. But we need training. We need awareness and training because in this life it can get so chaotic and it can get so deceptive. You could be 7 years old and be like, I want to live in a virtual reality my whole life. That could be easily a kid's dream right now. And you don't even. But and the thing is, you don't even know what that is. You don't even know what you'd be getting into. You don't even know where that goes. And so it's like if you don't have some sort of awareness of yourself on a spiritual level or what's going on, you can just be pulled in any direction or in any way and without any consciousness about what's happening or if it's good or bad or so it's like I really think men need training, and I don't think they need training in a way that's like indoctrination and you need to believe this, you need to do that. And but I do think there needs to be some boundaries and some guidance and like somehow being able to push men on their own path so they can come to their own realizations. Like I would never want to infringe on you and be like, hey, dude, Christ is the way. You need to go to church, dude. Like you need to fucking go down to church, like down the road every Sunday and read your Bible every day. My way is different than your way, and so I just want everyone to be like on their own way but moving up. And I think there can be pitfalls. I think like you're saying before, people can think they're on their way but they're really not and they could be led astray. I think that's probably very common with what's going on. So that just makes the game even that much more fun. Christ is like, hey, be careful of like fallen false prophets and this and that. It just makes it even sometimes, especially in the ayahuasca community. I hear people who go have these ayahuasca ceremonies and just have these horrible experiences and get black magic and curses on them and all this stuff. And I always wonder, I'm like, how the fuck did you end up there? I just don't even know how you gotten in that position. It's so bizarre. I'm so detached from that because I'll do my homework and I'll research and I'll look up stuff and I'll be like, well, yeah, I just was in Iquitos and someone told me they're going to ceremony and now I've been dealing with this fucking black magic for 4 years. And I'm like, wow, yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, and yet I feel like it's all it, we see it as not good as we're in the moment, but like later, like what happens later, maybe even not even in that person's lifetime, but over the course of the whole evolution of the plan, like that each of these things that we feel like we're being led astray, but it's actually that the divine plan is turning in a direction that we're meant to go in to be led back. We can't know where the line is that we want to be on if we don't get pulled away from the line to come back to it. So yeah.
I think real wisdom can be leading someone more astray sometimes.
Yeah.
Like they're astray, and you're like, cool, I'm going to help them go even more astray.
Yeah.
Because I know if you just go a little bit further, they're going to hit that wall, that rock bottom, and they're going to be like, I got to move back. And they're going to move back
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've had that experience actually with people that I've allowed to stay in my home that have been on they're down on their luck or whatever. And my thought at the time was, man, you know what? This person is so chaotic and they need stability. It seems like they need something stable just to get back on their feet. So I'm going to do my best to provide the most comfortable environment for them. I'm going to take care of them as best I can. And that will give them the stability they need to be able to right their ship. And what I found multiple times is that actually it made things worse for them. Or it didn't necessarily make things worse for them, but it certainly didn't do what I thought it was going to do and make things better for them. It ended up that they continued to go down further. They had further down to go, let's say, before they hit rock bottom. And me providing this comfort zone actually facilitated that instead of sending it the other direction. And they ended up hating me for it, not knowing, that's what happened, right? Like that somehow I become the bad guy for just doing my best to support that person. But it's what they needed at that time to continue going where they were going so that they could hopefully hit that rock bottom. And hopefully meaning like that, because once you hit rock bottom, then you can actually stand on solid ground when you go to build that foundation. So yeah, I realized through those experiences that it maybe what a person needs is tough love, in the sense of like, I'm not going to provide, it's not, maybe you can stay here, but it's not going to be cushy. It's not going to be comfy and happy. It's going to be obvious that you're in a position that you need to move your energy and get your shit together, kind of thing, versus just be like, oh, take your time, there's no problem, mi casa su casa. You know, I guess every situation is different, but I definitely, for myself and for some people with experiences like that, it seems like facilitating that being led astray sensation is part of the journey sometimes,
Absolutely. I'm going to use the bathroom real quick, but I'm going to keep talking to you if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, bro. So, um, I had the same thing happen, just to jump in real quick. On we just moved to this house, and the first month, my fiance had a cousin and her son, and they needed a place to stay for 1 or 2 months to find a job, get them a school, get on their feet, then move out. I'm like, after some deliberation, I'm like, okay, it's family. I know fucking hard times. I was just asking people for money, so I'm totally cool with that. Um, and so anyways, long story short, it was like within a week, it was just too much. It was like she couldn't find a job, and then she couldn't find a school, though that was the initial plan. And then her son's like banging stuff all day, and like, kind of like broke the hammock and did something else in the house. And then we basically within a week had to ask her to leave. Like, it got so intense
Wow.
that it was like we just had to ask her to leave. Like, you just can't stay here. But it was the same thing. It was same thing you said. I think it was like we're keeping her from growing
Yeah.
because we're trying to help her too much. It's like she's in this situation because of herself. And
Yeah.
it's like, and I was cool to help somebody out while they got on their feet, but then she wasn't like getting on her feet. And now it's like affecting our house and our relationship. And so, it was just like we became much more careful about who we decided to like let into our house and how much they're going to appreciate and respect it. Cause I'm like, I've been working on this golf influencer thing and YouTube thing for 14 years now, that allowed me to find a few clients to like make this happen. I've never had my own home. So I treat this home with a lot of respect and care, like, because I earned it and I pay for it.
Yeah.
And they didn't have that same mentality because they're not earning it, they're not paying for it. So it was like another hard lesson, like you're saying. And sometimes when you try to like help people too much, you keep them from really them gaining their own power.
Yeah.
Uh, so sometimes giving people less is necessary.
Yeah. Hmm. Man, I'm so curious to know about your trip to see the grandfather, was it?
Yeah, man, we went to one city to the grandfather, went one city to the to see her to see her to see her father, grandfather, then father,
Yeah.
and Noya Rao and the Tree of Light and that whole thing. It was incredible.
So remind me again, like she had a dream and then her mom had a dream,
Yeah,
or
yeah, she had a dream, and it was a pretty elaborate dream. Like she was in a river, and she was on a mountain, and there were snakes following us underneath the water in the river. But long story short, And then we had a daimi ceremony. We were really got her grandfather came to her more than a few times, was like, and then in her daimi ceremony said, hey, one of the reasons you're with Gabriel is to bring him back to his family. And so, and she, oh, and one dream, like her grandfather came to her and was like, hey, Gabriel's really sick. She would see me in dreams like dying. And then her grandfather would be like, he's really sick. He needs help. Da, da, da. And then her mom, like, saw like three visions of me with her grandfather too, or with her father, her mom's father. So then,
Visions or dreams?
so for my fiance, for Metza, they were happening in her dreams when she was sleeping.
Yeah.
And then I believe for her mother, they were in ayahuasca ceremonies that she was holding.
Okay.
So then we decided, and her grandfather's 102. He's one of the most well-known shamans in Peru. His name's Benjamin Mawa. The Mawa lineage is very famous because it's associated with the Noya Rao trees, which is the tree of light. And there's only very few of them, is what myth keeps alluring to. So we flew down there and we met with the family and we had ceremony with him and his wife and her mom, my fiance's mom and her brother. It's a family of shamans, is what it is. It's like we're all together and you got like four people singing Ikaros that are all part of the same family. It's like her mom and then her brother, and then her, her grandfather's wife. And, she's like probably in her 80s or 90s and she's singing like belting out these hardcore Ikaros, and it's just a family of shamans. It's really interesting. And it's funny because actually, I didn't think about this until now, but a couple years ago when I had an ayahuasca ceremony, I saw myself being part of like a family of like a family tree of shamans in a vision. I came from a line of shamans, is what I saw. And so, anyways, we knew her grandfather couldn't help me because he's 102. He can't move much. He can't do much. He's really old. Like, so he's not working a lot these days. And so, we're spending a lot of money that we don't have a ton of to get over here. And she was like, I don't like feel like we should be here. I know we're not gonna like get any help from you. And I go, we're doing the right thing. I know we were guided here. I know this is what we should be doing. I know how to follow my intuition. And so, anyways, we were just there for 4 days. And then we went to the jungle to Iquitos. We flew from Pacopa to Iquitos and we met with her father. She hadn't seen her father for 3 years. So this is a pretty big deal. And then basically one of the interesting things that happened is he started telling her all these stories about Noya Rao. Like one of the stories, if I can kind of remember, was he was like, if you have a connection to this tree is somehow going to find its way back to you and like call it back to itself. It's going to like either give you some sickness or it's going to come into your dreams or something like that. And it's going to like come in and find a way to reach back out to you. And he was telling her all these things that she didn't ask for, that she didn't ask him for. And he was just telling her all this lore and all the myths from the Shipibo culture and the Noya Rao and all these things. And so all the stuff that she had questions about but didn't have answers for. And her father was like telling him to her without her even asking. So that was like a real big step. That was like really exciting to her. And then he came upstairs and I was just laying upstairs on the couch and he was walking to in his room. And as he was turning, he just kind of glanced at me and he looked at me and he's like, kind of glances again. He's like, are you not well? He's like, are you sick? He's speaking in Spanish. He doesn't know English. So Metza's looking at him. She's looking at me. He's like, he doesn't look good. He's like, am I right or something wrong or what's going on? And she's like, yeah, Papa, like he's not good. He's really sick and he's not doing well. Because we actually said that we were not going to tell her father about my sickness at all. Because I had told her many times, I know the people who can help me or not help me. I could just tell by the resonance and looking in their eyes if they can connect to what I'm dealing with or not. So, so, so the fact that he saw that I wasn't good, I told her no one's ever done that. Like in 7 years, no one's ever once ever glanced at me, looked at me, and then acknowledged that I don't look well. So that was like a really big sign for me. I was like, dude, that's good sign because no one's ever done that. And so he's like, yeah, he's like, well, we'll take you to my center and get you some treatment and we'll help you out. And then, so we went to his center, and dude, it's like, I, the whole thing I kept telling everybody is it just feels like a fairy tale. You're in the Amazon jungle. There's this huge maloca, this round dome maloca thatched roof. It's huge. It's circular. There's these paintings on the side that are from the visions they see. There's a maestro that sits in the middle and drinks this plant medicine, and we all sit in a circle and we have these visions, and he sings these Shipibo songs. And you look, we go outside and you just see, like, the last night I was there was just the Milky Way with no moon, and you're just seeing thousands upon thousands of billions of stars. And it just is like a fairy tale. Like, I just think it would be something you would read in a book. Like, it shouldn't exist. Like, everything about it is so like mythical and magical, like we're in the Amazon jungle. You hear all these animals and frogs, and it's just the whole scenario is just so out of this world.
Yeah.
So it was cool. Then one day he pulls up in his truck, and just out of the blue pulls up at his truck while we're at the center, and he looks at me and I'm with Metz, and he's like, your memory isn't good. And he's like, I'm gonna make you a drink for your memory. And it was just like another thing that was like, because my memory's been really bad. Like, my chronic pain has really affected my thinking and my mind and my memory. So for him to say that was like another thing that was just like, I could just see like what you were saying. I don't know where it comes from for me or you or him, but like just some spirit whispering into his ear, of like the treatment to do. And, this isn't good, because I never talked to him about that. Never mentioned my memory or anything like that. So for him just to come out of the blue and say that, for me, it really felt like we had a genuine connection, that he could genuinely see my sickness, and then he could genuinely help me, because like no other shaman could see my sickness. Like, before I go there, I tell them what I'm dealing with, and it feels like they're kind of like just making something up to some degree based off what I'm saying. But he is the one who was like, dude, you don't look good. And then he's like, we don't need to. He's just like, I already know what to do. So yeah, so he gave me some treatment. He gave me some poultices. You know what a poultice is?
No.
A poultice is like a wrap with like earthy materials that they put on your body.
Okay.
So he gave me like 12 plants. But with these 12 plants all smushed up, he put 150 chili peppers in there. I don't know what type of pepper.
Wow.
And then he wrapped it on my pain, on my back. And then it felt like my back was on fire. I couldn't lay on my back the first day. I'd only lay on my sides. And Metza, my fiance, was telling me, I was like, how does this work? Like, what's the purpose of this? And she goes, well, she's seen her papa do all these treatments before in the past when she used to, live at the center and spend a lot of time with her father. And she goes, well, this is what she would do. He would say, tell me where the pain is, if someone have chronic pain or something. And they'd be like, I have it on my elbow or something. And he goes, okay, that's not where the pain originated at. That's not the mother. He would call it like the mother. That's not the mother. It's just where like the symptoms are. And so he would put the wrap on the elbow. And then what would happen? He would tell them that the pain's going to move. And a lot of people, she said, wouldn't believe him.
Hmm.
But then he would put the pain on the elbow, and then the pain the next day would be like, it would move. Maybe it's on their arm or their shoulder or somewhere else. And they're like, Maestro, like, fucking, yeah, it's like over here now. And then he would like put it here, and like basically he would follow the pain back
Wow.
to its like origination, to where it came from, and then they would put it there until like the pain. She was saying like the pain couldn't get relief, like this chronic pain's trying to run away because the chili peppers is like burning the
Right.
pain,
That's
and it's
so
trying to
interesting.
find relief. And then she's like, he would keep attacking it with the chilies and following it until it's like, okay, I'm not going to get any relief. I can't be safe here. I'm just going to leave. And then be like absorbed by the plants, or just be like,
Wow.
so yeah, it was really cool to hear that. And to me, it just kind of made sense. I was like, yeah, that's really interesting. That makes sense. I don't know why it makes sense, but that's just kind of cool. Um, so we did that. We put some poultices on me, and it was really hard. And he's like, you're gonna be paid for like a couple weeks, and it's gonna get better. Um, one of the things was, he said that like this is only gonna be good for a year. He's gonna need to come back. And then another thing he said was, when I go home, like just change your routine, like change everything. He has a lot of faith in the plants. He's like, I did my treatment, we did the right treatments. Now you just need to go home and like just become a different person, you know? He's like, the plants took away the pain, but it's still in your mind, it's still in your memory. So you really need to like change everything you do, be like become a different person, you know?
Get rid of the
And
muscle memory.
go ahead.
Get rid of the muscle memory.
Yeah, because it's like your body, it's like in your mind now. He's like, it's gone, but it's like your mind remembers this pattern, you know?
That's interesting.
So yeah, it was really cool listening to him about like little stuff like that and listening to other people. Like he has a very intuitive way with helping people and stuff. And it's got to be hard, dude. Like you have people coming to you for like all types of ailments. Like girl was there for cancer. Some other guy had ringing in his ears and he thought he was gonna die. And it's like people come to you with probably the severest of stuff, and they're like trying to look at you as their savior. But these have been patterns that, people have cultivated over 20, 30, 40 years. But it was cool to see some of his perspectives and ideas on healing and hear some of his protocols. So the week after we left was super hard. I was in a lot of pain at the second week. And to be honest, it's been like, I don't know, maybe it's been like a month since we were there. I would say it's about a month, give or take, maybe a little more, a month and a week. And I haven't felt any changes really. But interestingly enough, is I've been feeling like I need to get busier with business because we don't have a car, and certain things make our life a lot harder over here. And so I've been making like I made like 4 Instagram videos the last 4 days, which isn't saying a lot, but one of the things was, okay, so Noya Rao is this tree of light. I'll kind of backtrack a little bit. And it's a tree that supposedly glows in the dark. I haven't really read or listened much on it, but I know it's a tree. It's called the tree of light. And so one of the days, Metza takes us, and so this is pretty intense. So I'm just going to share the story. So there's 3 guys. One of them has a mom. So it's a son and a mom, 2 other guys, and then me and Metza and a guide. So they want to see the tree of light. They've never seen it. So we go there in the middle of the night. Metza doesn't speak English like phenomenally. She speaks English really well, but we didn't know what was going on. So we go up to the tree, and she's like, close your eyes and say a prayer. So we close our eyes, we say a prayer, and then we're like, we don't really know if we're supposed to open eyes or not because we just never been here before. So then after a couple of minutes, I think the guys are like, should we open our eyes? And she's like, yeah, yeah, like, oh yeah, open your eyes. And I open my eyes and I'm looking around and I don't see anything. It's just pitch black in the jungle at night. I don't see nothing. And so I'm like, just kind of, I think everyone's kind of like, just, okay, am I still supposed to be something? And then I'm like, is this like a myth? Is it just a story? I just don't like, am I supposed to be seeing something? And then she's like, do you guys see it? And I was like, looking around, and I see like one small dot, like the size of a penny or something, like on the ground. It's like some little light thing, but I can't tell what it is. I'm like waving my hand over it. I'm trying to think, I'm trying to look up at the moon. This is like some light from the moon getting through the trees, and I see like 2 more. And then within like a minute or two, I see like a big leaf that's glowing, like this size. And then I see like 10, 15 more leaves. And then like another minute, I see like 40, 50 leaves. And all of a sudden, like 5 minutes in, there's just leaves all around the tree glowing. And like everyone's freaking out. We're like, holy shit, dude, this is fucking crazy. We're picking up the leaves and stuff. And then I pick up like a little twig, like a little 7, 8 inch twig that's glowing, a little stick, a little pollen that's glowing. You're like, what the fuck, dude? This shit's fucking crazy. So we were all tripping out. Now, interesting thing enough about this was on the ride over there, we had to take I forget the name in Spanish, like a fogoneto or something. It's something where it's like someone's driving a motorcycle in the front, there's a big cabin in the back. If
No.
we're putting branches or firewood in and stuff like that, like, more for construction, whatever. So we're all back there. And right before we leave to go to the tree, because we have to drive for about 5 minutes, there's this little dog in front of us. It's still little tiny dog, and his name's Ayahuasca. And he's like not letting us go because he's in front. The guy's like, get out. And the dog just doesn't move. So we pick him up and we bring him inside. And one of the guys is holding the dog in the back and he's laying against the bed, like the bed of the back. And as we're driving up a hill, we hear screaming, we hear the dog barking, and then we hear like, stop, stop, stop. Because I'm in the front, it's not big, but I'm in the front looking forward as we're driving, I'm actually holding a flashlight so we can see. And I'm thinking that this little dog just was kind of fell and was rolling around the back and was yelping. But this lady, the guy's mom was screaming so loud, we stopped. And I looked back, the bed of the truck is open, and he had fell out, and the dog had fell out. And we were going like fast. We were going probably
Wow.
like 15. Like we were in a stretch where the road was smooth and we were hauling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy fuck. So he starts walking forward because he had fell. And by the time we had stopped, we were already 40 yards ahead. And he's walking up and he's a little like dazed. And we look at his head and he's got like a decent gash on his head. I'm like, holy fuck, dude. Like it's not good. Like this is really intense. And interestingly enough, this is what I said, and I don't know if they agree, and it's just my interpretation. But the first thing I said, kind of like intuitively, was like I looked to my fiance and I go, the tree doesn't want to see him. Like that's just what I said immediately. I was like,
Wow.
the Noya Rao doesn't want to see him. So I said that immediately to her. I just looked back and I was like, because like when you're in the jungle and you're part of ceremony and retreats, like these things happen a lot. Like the whole time you're there, there's always a ceremony going on.
Yeah.
And so I looked and I was like, the tree doesn't want to see him. So we put him in the back. We drove a little further where another retreat was that they owned. And we just wanted to make sure he's okay, kind of clean him up, get him a bandage. So that's what we did. And Metza was like pretty adamant, like, hey, he shouldn't come to the tree. I don't think she said this, but she's like, if he comes, it kind of puts us all in danger. Like, I really don't think he should come. And so he didn't. And like, I think he needed to rest anyways. He just hit his head pretty hard. Luckily, it was just nothing serious, didn't have a concussion. I was there for 3, 4 days later, he recovered quick. So we went to the tree and we had the experience I shared with you about. And then we go back. Oh, so then we're at the tree and they said, can we take some leaves? They want to take some leaves. And Meta was like, no, that's like definitely not allowed. Um, so when she said that, the mom in our group was like, what do you mean that's not allowed? And like, that's not allowed. Like, unless you have like some real strong permission from the tree, no one's allowed to take any leaves. Because I remember Meta telling me about a story about one of the retreat members who took leaves, and he took a lot, like maybe 10 or 20. He was putting them around his bed in his room and his tombo and stuff. And then he came to the maestro or dad one day and his eye was like swollen shut. He had like both eyes is swollen shut. He had something going on here, and he had got stung by like 3 bees or something. And he needed ointment and help. And so the maestro, hearing about this, comes into his tombo to treat him, to try to give him some ointment and stuff. And he sees all these leaves on the ground. And he goes, what the? He's like, what leaves are these? Why are these in your room? And he's like, oh, these are Noya Rao trees. And he's like, are you fucking stupid? He's like, what? He's like, what are you doing? Like, you can't just take these leaves like that. And he's like, this is why you have all this going on. He's like, this is not right. It's disrespectful. This is take. And so he's like, you need to go return all these leaves. He's like, this is why this is happening. So I remember her telling me that story before we got there. So then when we're at the tree, the other guys were like, hey, can we take some? And she was like, no, definitely not. And the mom was like, what? Really? Why not? And Mensa kind of explains to her. And then she mentions at the tree that her son had taken leaves earlier in the week from the tree.
Hmm.
And then we're like, at the time, I'm like, well, that's why the fuck he fell out. And that's why like he wasn't allowed back or something,
Oh, he's
like
the one that fell out.
yeah, he was the one that fell out, and he
Oh,
had took some
shit.
leaves from the tree earlier.
Man.
And same thing, like he didn't know that's not something you're supposed to do. So it's like one of these really weird, like everyone in the group was like, "Holy shit, that's fucking crazy!" Because they asked if they could take them. She's like, "No," and then her mom, who that was there with us, was like, "My son took some a few nights ago," and
Wow.
then was like, "Holy fuck, dude!" Like now it all makes sense.
Wow.
So,
That was my,
yes,
go ahead,
huh?
Matt. I'll interrupt.
Yeah, so it was cool, man. It was like when I met her father, Don Enrique, it felt like the last piece of the puzzle coming to me here in Peru because I had built this connection with Christ and Daime that just felt like a part of me, like on one arm of like really who I am. I mean, my name's Gabriel Michael. I have like a very Christian anointed name, and I grew up in the church and I've always had this desire to live for God and to Christ when I was younger. I just didn't have the connection and the relationship then. And so it was like that came back to me in the way that was meant for me and that connects with me.
Yeah.
And then I have this jacket that has this Shapibo design that I had made and embroidered on one side. And I had told her many times that I haven't found my Shapibo family. I was like, I'd go to die with my family, but I would always said that they're like my cousins, they're like my relatives, they're not my real family. And I just intuitively felt because there was always a connection that was off. And she was like, I think this is your family. And she was talking about her family because I hadn't felt a connection with her mom, didn't feel a big, strong connection with her grandfather. So I had told her before we had met going to meet her dad, I was like, this is the last step. Like this is it. Like there's no one beyond Don Enrique. We're not going to go look for more people, shamans to help me. This is it. Like I see a map in my mind. X marks the spot with Don Enrique, and we're just not going past this. So whether he helps me or not, I don't care, don't mind. I just know he's the last person. Like that was being shown to me before we flew over there. And then so meeting Don Enrique, he's like, you're sick, and he's like, your memory's not good, and having that personal connection with me without me even telling him that I'm not doing well and not trying to show him anything. I'm just being my normal self. And then meeting Noya Rao, which is an extremely, it's the rarest tree in the jungles, what I've always heard. And I met with this tree and I go, how did I get here? How am I married into this family? Mom shaman, dad shaman, grandfather shaman, brother shaman, Don Enrique's daughter shamans, his brother shamans. And this is what I feel like I got. I'm not on medicine, I'm not on ayahuasca or anything. I'm just talking to the tree, like telepathically. And I just feel like the tree said, what I am gathering through this, my own process is like, well, the reason we align together is because, you aim to serve God. And that's what I do. That's what Noya Rao does. We serve God, and you serve God, and you've proven yourself through the last 6.5 years if that's what you want to do. And so now it was just like this alignment of us matching. And it was telling me like, this tree's connected to a lot of different families, a lot of different people. And I really believe the energy of Christ is very much associated with this tree as well. And one of the other things the tree said to me, I felt was like, you're gonna heal when you're learning what you should be learning, when you're growing how you should be growing, and you're doing what you should be doing. You know, I've never had an experience like even with Don Enrique or somewhere where I did some treatment and then my body just got better. For me, it's been more of like a holistic life process and who I am and who I'm becoming and who I'm learning and what I'm doing and who I'm being that I think my body will naturally heal itself as I keep moving into alignment with who I am, what I'm here to do. So yeah, man, it felt like the last piece of the puzzle coming together for me in Peru and my life. And I feel like everything came together in Peru for me, which was like being able to start my own life for one, and then this connection with Christ and God, which I never had in this life. That was a huge part because I had that seed in me as a child to live for God in Christ, but I never accessed it, never connected to it. So that coming back was huge for me because over the years I had been connected to the indigenous spirituality. Let's go to ceremonies down in Escondido or, I was connected drumming and fluting, but I didn't have any connection to God or Christ the last 7 years. Not Christ at all. I don't remember ever praying to Christ or trying to communicate or talk to Christ the last 7 years. And God, like the word God was probably very sparsely used to the last 7 years, Great Spirit, the land. So that connection was good. And then having that Shapibo, like that actual connection with the family or person I'm supposed to be, or with Noya Rao, was another solidification of who I am and what I am supposed to be connected to and to learn from. And and to go through my process with. And so yeah, I was like, I feel like I know who I am now. And now just as I go through my life, I'll just be growing in all these ways, growing with Christ, growing with the plants, growing in business, growing my relationship. But I feel like I have all the parts of who I am together. Now I'll just be like learning and refining and growing and transforming into that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. Man, what I wanted to jump in and say, but I paused on, I'm glad I didn't forget, is that when I was on the Big Island in Hawaii, it was the same mentality they had there about don't take any of the lava, don't take any lava rocks off the island. And they had all these stories of people who had chosen to take lava rocks off the island, and then all kinds of stuff was going on in their lives to where people were like mailing the rocks back to the island. Please put these back, you know. And like you said, there has to be a reason or a permission from Pele, from the goddess of the island, for any rock to be used like as a piece of jewelry that can be removed from the island, or if there's something, some sort of ceremonial experience that happens where it's a clear message that this rock is meant to go with you as a guide or as a blessing or something like that, where it's not like just human arrogance, like it's mine. There's no reverence, you know, like, oh, I like this rock, I'm going to take it home and stick it on my desk, you know. Yeah. So you said it's the rarest tree in the Amazon. Can you tell me how to spell that? I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
Let me type it in the chat. It's oh yeah, it's Noyarao.
Is that a separate word, RAO?
Yeah,
Like you were saying two
um,
words, Noya Rao.
Noya Rao. And it creates a lot of it's crazy because it creates a lot of controversy in the Dieta community in Shipibo. It creates a lot of controversy because it's like a mythical tree that represents the spirit of God. Is basically how I understand it. It's God incarnated into a tree. Her father was saying like people need something physical to see, to connect with God, or else God's like too far out there. Maybe it's too hard. So God comes in the form of Jesus, or maybe it's in a tree. And for us, it's like this tree, which is Noya Rao. So God represents Noya Rao for us.
What does Noya Rao translate as?
Um,
Tree of light?
it actually translates to the flying tree.
The flying tree. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, there's myths about the tree like picking up the community and flying it to safety, you know? And when you diet it, people have experienced flying, maybe like astral projecting or something. So it's called the tree of light because it obviously glows in the dark. And then but it's really referenced also as the flying tree and like kind of the path of truth. They say this tree can is one of the few trees, if not the only tree, that can't be used for darkness. So a lot of the shamanic trees can be used for healing and can be used for darkness, like brujos and witchcraft. But this tree, they say, is only of light and it can't be manipulated or its powers used to harm others.
Wow.
There's only like 4 to 6 of them in the entire jungle.
What?
Yeah, and so this is another thing. This is how deep the rabbit hole goes with this type of culture. My wife says that every shaman is connected to a tree. And this is how you know how good the shaman is or how strong the shaman is, depending on what tree they're connected to.
Hmm.
And she said that like Benjamin and his two brothers that died, because he's like the his younger brothers I think died before him. And they were also connected to Noya Rao trees. And when they died, the Noya Rao trees died. So it's
Wow.
like you're connected to this tree. And then when as you're growing, the tree grows, and then when you die, the tree dies. Apparently it's not a tree that can be planted. It's not like because everyone asked that, like, well, why don't you just plant more? And they're like, and she said, I'm pretty sure her said her dad and her mom tried, it just doesn't work.
Hmm.
Just they just can't do it, or they don't grow. So, and just to make the lore even deeper, the way that these trees, so you only really know about these trees in the dark. That's really the only way to know. They look like mostly any other tree. They don't look like a real special standout tree. They look very common. I have pictures. They look like every other tree. So what happened was her father got a vision of the tree in a ceremony, and he was guided on where to go into the jungle. And the story that he tells, and she tells, that he went in the jungle for 3 months. And she said her and her mom thought he was dead, like he's not coming back. And he went there for 3 months and he found his Noya Rao tree. And then he built his center around the Noya Rao tree. And then he found like two more on his property actually. So he's got like three, he's actually has four. He's got two, there's like an elder tree, there's like one younger, and there's like two small ones. So he's got four. And um so yeah, and then what's funny is where I did my dieta. First of all, her father's related to the shaman I worked with 6, 7 years ago. And his retreat center where I did mine at 7 years ago was just 10 minutes down the road from where his was. And just to reinstate this, that Don Enrique, who we met with the Noya Rao trees, was at my birthday party in the jungle that I have photos and videos of with when we were dancing together. Like her mom was on one side, my fiance's mom, and her dad, Don Enrique, were on me. And I have my phone's right there, and I have videos of us dancing together. They were at my party. Never knew they were shamans, never knew they were anything. They were just at my party. Because there was my birthday was on the 29th. There was another birthday that was like on the 27th, and there was another birthday on like September 3rd. So two of my maestro's grandchildren, who were like right around my age too. So we had three birthdays within a week. So we just put them all together and we just had one fiesta. And her father and mother were there with her two, with his two sons that I got to see as well. So it was funny because we were so close to each other and so connected, that 7 years later, I come back just down the road from where I was.
Yeah.
And so
I can
yeah,
see how
man.
that can sort of validate or solidify that familial connection.
I have to believe in past lives. I've never had personal memories of past lives. It'd be cool to maybe to do a past life regression one day with like a hypnotherapist or something like that. I've read books about stuff like that. But it's like, how does a person like me go at 25, being the number one golf YouTuber at one of the nicest, golf facilities in the world in Arizona, in $2 million facility that has no experience with psychedelics or plant medicines or indigenous cultures or communities, end up here 7 years later. Um, because like you're saying, everything's resonance. If you don't have a connection to something, you're gonna be like, dude, I just have no calling to do ayahuasca. I have no calling to, like, this is I go around Peru and I fucking love it. But then I think, if I was my older sister, for all the reasons I love it, she'd probably be like, get me the hell out of here. It's dirty, it's poor, there's just not much you could. But to me, it like brings me alive. And I bet you the same things to other people. Be like, okay, I need to get into a better supermarket, or there's like not a movie theater here or something. So it's I have to believe in past lives because it's like it's the only reason I can think that I have made my way back here and to be in connection and resonance um with Peru and with this family and what I'm doing with my life.
Beautiful, brother. So the tree wasn't glowing when you got there. It did, like you had to be there for a minute for it to start glowing, or you can walk up on it in the forest because it's glowing and you're like, oh, there's one.
Okay, so there's a few different ways they could go about this. Some people say your eyes need to take time to adjust. That kind of plays a little bit into it for sure.
Okay.
Another thing is that she says to me, and I kind of, believe her and lean towards her father and her because they've been around this, and people who I guess aren't spiritually minded maybe can't access this level of understanding or perspective. But depending on the group but depending on who's going to it, it sounds like it's kind of goes back to what we were talking about, a capacity, about alignment, about resonance. And it's like if the tree isn't connected to you, um, or something like that, it won't glow. Like so
Like
she's
for
like,
anybody
sometimes
or just for you?
that's a good, I might have to ask her. It might be, I'm trying to think, like I kind of want to say maybe for that person. Like it's kind of crazy, right? It's like bring a group there, but like one person doesn't see it, but everyone else does or something, you know?
Yeah.
But she has definitely told me instances where they take groups there and there's nothing glowing.
Hmm.
And then they take some groups there and fucking everything's glowing.
Right.
So she has mentioned that to me.
It makes me think of Avatar, the James Cameron movie, the first Avatar with the, I forget the name of the tree, but it's like their equivalent of that tree that you're talking about. It's like this glowing tree that they take their little hair thing and connect their hair to it, and then that's their prayer tree. And then separately from that, what you mentioned about how when the shaman dies, the tree dies. In Avatar, the flying creature that they ride, they say that like if the rider dies, the creature dies.
Hmm,
But if the creature dies, the rider can survive. I
hmm.
might actually be, now that I'm thinking about that, that might not be from Avatar, that part. That might be from a movie about dragons. Dragonheart, I think it was called. I think I'm conflating those two, but there's maybe that's in Avatar too. Or maybe what it is in Avatar is that they talk about how you'll only ever make, like the creature will only ever bond with one human its whole lifetime. It might not have anything to do with the creature dying. That might be from that dragon movie, but something about like something about that, or maybe that's Game of Thrones. Now that I think about it, the dragon dies. Anyway, doesn't matter. But yeah. I mean, that's interesting. Like, it makes me wonder: did Cameron pull from this myth? Did he somehow learn about this Noya? How do you pronounce it again?
Oh, Noya Rao.
Noya Rao, and incorporate that into Avatar.
So just a little bit on him because I've only watched one video of him. He lives in New Zealand.
Cameron does. James Cameron. Mm,
His home and where he permanently resides is in New Zealand.
mm.
So he's very aware. And actually, have you seen The Way of Water, the second Avatar movie?
Yes, I
Did they do a Haka in there?
think
Like
so.
the New Zealand, yeah. So I haven't seen the movie yet because it's not available online. I don't think. Maybe you could buy it online, but I've been waiting to like come out on streaming services.
Yeah.
But he said in this video, because I was watching about him, he lives in New Zealand. He studied the Maori culture a lot, and he said that he wanted to put the haka in there and incorporate a lot of stuff from the Maori culture. And he also said that he was going to go and ask for permission from certain of the elders and tribes to ask for their input and ask for their permission to put it into the movie and stuff. So he's hardcore vegan. He's trying to like incorporate veganism to like all New Zealand, which is he gets a little bit of backlash for that because a lot of New Zealanders are like sheep farmers and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but lives in New Zealand, studied the Maori culture a lot. So I wouldn't doubt if he knew about the Tree of Light, like Ferngully and Avatar.
Yeah.
These stories come from real things.
It's wild, man. It's really wild. It's awesome. So, I mean, like you pointed out, it's sequential, but like meeting this grandfather that came in your wife and your mother-in-law's visions and dreams, like it's almost like that was a necessary, it was almost like you were being pulled to believe in a way that he had the answer or an answer or something, but yet it was more of like you had to go there first so that you could then go see her dad. Like it was part of the process of arriving at this last destination.
Yeah, it's something like it always seems to be something like that. Like go to Peru, and then you think you're going to Peru like me to do a dieta to help me with my pain, and then it's something completely different than you thought you were going for, right? And just to kind of validate our trip a little bit more, that we didn't plan on doing is my fiance said some stuff to her family that was necessary that has changed their lives forever, drastically, the dynamic of the family. I don't want to get into it, some personal things, but because we went there and she shared that, the future of the family is drastically different, like severely different,
Hmm.
in a good way. But, also that came through a lot of uncomfortabilities and, challenges. But because of those challenges and uncomfortabilities that she shared, it's changing all the family for the better.
Hmm.
So that's not something we predicted or expected, but I think it was really important that we went, and good, because of what she said, and now what's happened because of that, makes me feel good about how we've helped the family through going there. So
Hmm. It's wild.
yeah, so yeah, and I'm working in the golf business pretty strong. I just have a few clients, but I'm like full time every week working in the golf industry and marketing and online stuff and branding and advertisement and all this stuff. And it's like you're saying, bro, one foot in, one foot out. When I think of all this stuff on one side, it seems so abstract and uh abnormal. And then I have like this, I'm trying to provide and work on business and focus on all the Western worldly things. So it's like definitely two different polar extremes, and drinking dime every month. And I'll just say one last thing, just because I'm really sharing about my, kind of feels like I'm really wrapping up my story in Peru this last year. Been here a month and a year and a month tomorrow. I got here on June 24th. Tomorrow will be July 24th. So I've been a year and a month. And there's one thing that happened to me too recently, where we did Wachuma in the mountains. And God, they have so many sacred mountains over here, where it's called Kinsacocha, and it has three lagoons. So you hike up the mountain, there's one lagoon, and then you hike up and there's another lagoon, and then you hike up and there's a third lagoon. So Kinsacocha, I actually believe in Quechua, means three lakes. And I did Wachuma up there, and I have my hat on with my, Peruvian band, and my jacket, my Shapibo. It's a jean jacket. And it's just like, I was looking at pictures of me, and I was like, and how I felt up there. And I was like, dude, this feels like my perfect archetype of who I am coming together. It was like, I have this rosary on, so it's like this Christ symbol, but I have this Shapibo symbol on my arm. And then, I just kind of look like this mountain. I look like a mountain indigenous Christian man, like a Christ, this Christ guide, but that's connected to the earth. And that's actually how I feel about myself, like an indigenous Christian, where and it's cool with the Shipibo, it's like so focused on the plants and the roots and the elements. And then it's like Christ is like the heavens and the angels, and it's just Daime is like this higher energy. And Wachuma is like that too. So Wachuma, I think in the best place you could do it now through my experience is you go to the highest mountain and you go to the highest place on it. And the energy just feels fucking so pure up there, because there's no people, there's no cars, there's no planes, there's no towns, there's no shops. And you're just up in this like untouched, pure vibrational nature.
Hmm.
And so it's like you have this ayahuasca in the Amazon jungle with the Shipibo, then you have this Wachuma high in the Andean mountains, with the Quechua, and it's like this perfect of like being close to the sun and the heavens, and down here into the roots and the shadow and the light. It was just like the perfect balance, um, between the medicines. Like I really feel from doing Wachuma now properly that both are necessary. Like, right, both the light, it's like going back to like we're saying, like the light's necessary and the dark is necessary. And I just can't think of like doing one without the other. Like they both complement each other in their beautiful opposite ways.
Uh,
So I want to work with it more, is what I'm saying, because I just felt like that complete match, like
yeah.
resonance alignment match. Like I'm just perfectly fitting in to the mountains and the Wachuma. And so that's something I would like to make myself and work with more. And it's just so cool. I can literally, if I have a car, you can get a taxi for 20 bucks, $10, go an hour up the mountain, be by yourself on the middle of nowhere in this sacred place, You could probably make Wachuma for 20, 40 bucks, buy a cactus down at the market. And, it's just like there's so much freedom over here. Like you go to Peru and into the town I live by, you can buy ayahuasca in any store. You can buy magic mushrooms in any store. You can buy weed brownies in any store. And you can buy, Wachuma cactus. I haven't really seen anybody sell the drink. I have seen people sell the powder, but you could buy Wachuma. Like it's just so free over here. Like there's, obviously tons of hopes and tons of combos and sanangas and the whole thing. And it's just like, just a freedom you have to explore with your consciousness.
Sounds beautiful. I definitely resonate with the idea of being up on a mountain. But I don't know. I haven't had a chance to take Wachuma up on a mountain, but with mushrooms and cannabis, being up on that mountain, 6,000 feet up, just the way you described it, there's no distractions up there, or very few anyway. I guess it's kind of like a float tape in that regard. You know, it's sacred. There's something real special. It's like the channel is tuned in more clearly for the experience.
You don't even have to be on Wachuma to experience the purity of the energy up there, right? Like I'm not even like high off the medicine. I'm just like when you're in such a when you're in nature in such an untouched place with nobody else around, right? Like you're not a national park where there's maybe lots of people still. It's like if you could find a place within the trees or the mountains or by a lagoon and there's just nobody and it's just the wind and the water and the mountain and the sun and the clouds. It's like that. It's like this perfect ambiance with nothing distorted. There's no artificial energy. It's just like you're in a pure still point of life or something. It's so hard to explain. I think you need to experience that in your life because naturally being in that vibration naturally is going to quiet your mind because you're going to start moving in resonance with that energy, which is like there's no thoughts out there. There's no duality out there. There's no I don't know how to really explain it. But and this doesn't have nothing to do with the medicine. I'm just saying when you're just out in nature in a high vibrational nature place with nothing around. Sometimes you go out to the desert and you kind of walk out and then there's like that stillness that just like is a hollowness inside your being and it connects you to something vast.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a feeling you can't put into words. And then, so this is another thing, Patrick, and you've been around the Wachuma a lot more than me. I don't know. I don't know if you, like you said, you always drink or don't drink, but regardless, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this real quick because when I took Wachuma, within like 30 to 45 minutes, my chronic pain and my pain is gone.
Hmm.
And then I'm hiking up the mountain. We hiked a lot, because I'm really afraid of stuff like that because my body is not good, movement's not good, creates more pain. So here I am, 45 minutes in. I didn't get nauseous. And then I'm hiking up this mountain. I'm hiking a lot, real steep, real far. I got tons of energy and I got no pain. And I just like wonder what the science is behind that. I'm like, how does that work? Like, I have my own thoughts, but I don't know if you want to give any of yours of like, how does that scientifically work? Like, how does my pain disappear? Like,
I think it's like you said earlier that putting those chili peppers on the pain moved the pain, or maybe I don't know if it did for you too, but like that was the kind of his theory behind chasing the pain around to get it to go to its root. And then once the pain is addressed, the issue is addressed, but the neural pathways, if you want to be material about it, the neural pathways that represent the awareness of that pain, the sensation of it, are still available. And if the mental energy is sent down that pathway, then you're going to experience the pain again. And so his advice to his recommendation to change, to ultimately, if possible, to change everything so that there aren't any familiar pathways that are being triggered. But with the shift in frequency that is represented by Wachuma, I think that's what's happening ultimately, is that your neural energy is traveling down different pathways than the ones that represent pain. And it's like if you didn't have that frequency shift, you would be experiencing the pain. And if you shift the frequency, you could even be parallel pathways, be same two neurons right next to each other with two axons, right? And one's represents the pain pathway and one doesn't. They're going to the same place. They're activating the same processes in the body, but one, there's no experience of pain, and one there is.
Yeah,
That's what comes to me.
yeah, I think that's what it is. Cause I felt like what was happening, cause I'm aware of what's happening while I'm on it, and I'm trying to understand it. And it was subtle, it wasn't strong, but it just felt like my vibration had raised to a point where it went like above the pain. It like superseded the level of the pain. It went above it. And then
Yeah,
that's where I was like resonating, like you're saying. And then it's like, I think what you're saying is like, if I shift back down, I match back with that pain. And then those transmitters kind of get activated. And that's my experience. It was like, yeah, I think like being on the medicine, I think being up that high in nature, I was just high on nature before I even felt the medicine. I'm just like, dude, so beautiful up here. This is so amazing. Like just feeling the energy alone. And so, yeah, it makes sense. Like I got into such a high place that, and I was very grounded. This is the other thing. I had no visions. I didn't feel high. I was really in my body, which was
yeah.
really cool. It wasn't like some sort of third eye psychedelic experience. It was like really in my body, and was strengthening my body and aligning my body through this higher place, and through walking on the rocks and the different, my feet are moving around all these different positions. And yeah, it was amazing, dude. Like incredible.
My first experience with Wachuma, I don't know, frequency, whatever, but I described it as feeling like someone had poured molasses across my brain because everything seemed to slow down. I was still able to think coherently, but my ability to observe the passage of time seemed to alter to where I'm imagining. I'm pretty sure I shared this with you before, but I'm imagining what the passage of a day is like for a palm tree as I'm looking at the palm tree, or the passage of the day for a cactus that's there in the yard, not necessarily a Wachuma cactus, but just any cactus, and how from the moment the sun comes over the horizon and the light ray hits that plant, the plant is, and then the sun's slowly moving across the sky and then finally sets, and that plant has now had a day with the sun, and it no longer has any more light hitting it until the next day. And so maybe from the perspective of the plant, it's not a guarantee that the sun is going to come back the next day. It seems to do it every day, but maybe tomorrow it won't. So the plant spends all day long constructing one sentence, because that's the speed the plant works at. It's kind of like in Lord of the Rings, with the tree creatures, like when they speak English, they're speaking normal, but when they're speaking to each other, they're making these whale sounds, and it takes really long time to say just hello in their language because they operate on this time scale of living for thousands of years. So everything moves more slowly for them. So same thing with, that's what I was discerning with plants, is that one day as the sun comes across the sky represents the length of time it takes for a cactus to simply say, I love you, sun. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Something like that, and that's the end of the sentence, the last ray of light. And that was just an alternate reality that I was existing in as I'm contemplating. And I don't know this is how it is. This is just what was being brought to my awareness in the experience as I'm getting to get the sensation of what Wachuma was, how it resonated with me that first time. And I don't know if the plants operate on a higher frequency or a lower frequency, if it's even relatable to AM waves being long, slow waves, and FM waves being high frequency, fast waves. I don't know, but what it occurred to me at some point after I spent a few hours in this like contemplative space of like, this is how long it takes this plant to communicate and whatever. I then somehow was guided back to the human mind, because this was in September of 2020. So I was like, oh yeah, across the border there in the US, there's this chaos, this pandemic, and oh my God, and all the stuff that's happening back then for everybody that was just fear, fear, fear. And the plants are just sitting there like, And that human brain, it just moves super fast compared to them is what the kind of the sensation was that I was being shown, like, oh, you silly little humans, you'll figure it out eventually, kind of thing. It was like a much more vast intelligence than the human intelligence, but yet it seemed to move much more slowly. Or maybe it's much more quickly, but as a result of moving so quickly, it moves very slowly because it's like a paradox.
Yeah, I really think the slower you move, the faster things go. And that's what I was talking about with my partner the other day. Is he's trying to move so fast that I feel like we're going nowhere. And I'm like, hey, let's slow it down. Let's get real still. And then when you get real still, things go really quick because you're doing the right things in the right way,
Mm,
the right time.
mm,
Where it's like we're just doing a lot of stuff, but nothing's working. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. And in his mind, he wants to do more of it faster.
mm.
And if I had to be honest, I think he wants to do that repeatedly over and over. So it's not working. We're running out of time and money. So now we need to do more things faster so we don't run out of time and money, which makes us run out of money and time faster. So then we need to do more things.
Right.
And I'm like, it's that's not good. Like, let's hack away at everything and come back down to step one.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't think I can explain that. I don't want to explain it. I don't think that's something that can be taught. It has to be something realized and experienced. Because, like I said, in his mind, he's going, dude, you're just gonna make things worse. You're just gonna slow us down even more, and that's gonna make me want to do even things even faster. And so once again, it's just a resonance thing. It's just a different place, different time. But it's like, dude, I know this for a fact that the people I don't know if they ever need to move faster because even if someone's not doing anything, and even they're like kind of just physically not doing much, it's still because they're avoiding something in some way and not being still enough to be present enough to what they're avoiding or not facing,
Mm,
or not following. So it all starts with stillness, which breeds awareness. Doing. That's why a lot of people are like, I'm in a different relationship with a different person, but I'm having the same problems. It's like
yeah.
it's a different boyfriend, but it's like the fucking same scenario as the last boyfriend. It's like because you're not in tune internally, you're not in tune soulfully or spiritually. You haven't made any internal transformations. It's like we keep doing stuff, but there's no transformation, there's no change. It's like something has to change inside of us for us to get a new result out here. So what is that? It's not like the world's not giving us what we want. It's like, hey, we're not doing something right, but it starts from who we are.
Yeah.
And then back to Wachuma, it's like, dude, you're taking in a cactus. Like, imagine the life of a cactus that's connected to the earth, that points up and is just still all day. It doesn't move, it doesn't walk, it doesn't fly. It doesn't have to think about what it is or what it isn't or what's trying to be. And so these plant medicines, I think, really can connect us to our own nature, which is probably different than the nature of plants to some degree, but I don't really know what they do, all the way. They've guided my life completely and have been the biggest catalyst for sure. And you know, I thought I was gonna live here forever. That it's now that I've been in Peru, I was like, dude, I'm gonna live here forever. This is great. I love it here. Da da da. And then I was talking to my wife the other day, and I go, I was in the shower or something. I was like, probably gonna go back to America one day. And I was like, damn it, I don't want to go back there. And because I feel like it's where I'll be needed and where I can help, right? It's like I used to always say Peru's my spiritual motherland. I feel like I come here to spiritually grow,
Mm,
working with Daime and Shapibo. I'm able to start my house over here and I'm able to like grow spiritually a lot, because the environment really produces that. It's very spiritually minded. It's not very materialistic. People don't have fancy cars and tablets and phones and aren't trying to make a lot of money. So the culture is very spiritually oriented.
yeah.
And and then I think about New Zealand every day. There isn't a day that doesn't go by where I don't think about the Maori because it feels like another part of my soul that that I'm connected to. And so I think maybe it's possible I go to New Zealand one day like I'm doing here But this is what I said to myself the other day. I go, my heart is in Peru. It feels like my power is in New Zealand. So like my heart chakra is in Peru, my solar plexus is in New Zealand. That's where I feel most masculine. I feel like most like if I were to have a brotherhood and like really connect, it'd be like with those men is what I feel like. So my let's say my solar plexus is in New Zealand. I feel like my understanding of God and how we're talking about the fall of this force comes from the East. So like my higher chakras comes from like the Tao and Eastern philosophy. That's why I would tell people, I'm like, I don't know anything really about God or Christ, to be honest. I just know how to follow this current that's like go to Peru and go, like I don't know. If you ask me who Christ is, I have my own meditations and contemplations. I can't tell you that's who he really is. It's not a super strong connection, not really deep knowing conceptually. Just know how to follow this current that I would probably call the Tao. And so it's like my higher chakras is like connected to the East, but I go, my purpose is in the West, probably like my root and my sacral. I feel like that's where I'll be called to serve and where I'll be needed. It's like I love Peru. And if I could live here my whole life, I'd probably be great with that. I don't need to save the world. I don't need money. I don't need fame. I don't need validation, status. I'm good with simple life. It's nice. But I really feel like after my certain season here, or if I do go to New Zealand's over, I'll be called back to share what I've integrated because it's nice. I do get to drink Daime every month. Once I get a little bit more money, which I don't need too much more, I'll be able to drink Wachuma every month, and integrate and learn and embody what this nature is teaching me, what these plants and cactuses are teaching me. And I'd assume one day it'd be to go back to America and share, when they're fucking lost in AI land and virtual reality land and augmented reality land and man woman land. And it's like they're the blind leading the blind, the fucking chaos leading the chaos, and no one knows how to get out of the fucking box they're in because they're in it. It's like you can't solve the problem at the same level as created. You can't solve the problem from the same place. It's like you literally have to like go outside of it. And like in Peru, when I came here, 99% of the problems in America disappear because they don't exist here. It's pretty interesting to think that a lot of the problems are just from you being in the wrong environment or being in that environment. You separate yourself from the environment. You go to Switzerland or fucking Mongolian mountains, like dude, your depression disappears. There's nothing like I'm not famous. I don't have the Facebook likes. I can't build the YouTube channel as subscribers, and everyone's prettier than me. It's like, dude, we got to go. We got to go hunt. We got to go pick a shitload of corn today. And that's so therapeutic and healing for people to get out of their heads and into their body where they're contributing. And there isn't so much overwhelming judgments and places to go and people to be. And, it can be pretty overwhelming in America, I'm sure, especially with there's a constant war of politics and power over there. Because there is so much power in America. I really feel there's a lot of power over there, a lot of money and resources. Over here, there's no money and resources in this town. That's why there's no fucking war, because it's like you can't gain anything from taking anything from anybody. There's nothing here to take.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like America represents the front line in the spiritual war that's already taking place, but certainly the one that's coming. And I feel like that's why we have the opportunity to be placed where we are. Like you're saying, you feel like your role, your purpose will be to share here. And that's the same way I feel. There's many other places in the world I would prefer to live, just to live in a utopian like life. And I think maybe I've had those opportunities in past lives, if past lives are actually a thing, which like you, I don't have until recently. I haven't had any real evidence that that's been true for me personally. But some recent experiences that I've had have changed that, and I feel very connected to at least one past life at this point.
Well, this is the thing too, is like we don't remember these specific memories because like we have this life to focus on. But it's like look at that tapestry on your wall.
Yeah,
I don't have that tapestry on my wall. Look what you're wearing around your neck and your shirt. It's like there it is right there. It's like, yeah, we don't have like these super visceral, like visions and memories of us walking in the Mayan forest or something, but we're attracted to these certain symbols and songs or flavors,
yeah,
and I think that's gotta be where it's from.
That's the way it feels more and more, and especially like the experience I had last night with the obsidian blade. It's like the more I lean into the culture that I'm attracted to, the more these things come out of me without no one. I've never seen anyone use an obsidian blade for anything. I've only ever seen it laying on an altar. I don't even know if
Interesting.
it's even appropriate to do what I did. I just did it.
Yeah.
Somebody's probably like, "Oh, whoa, what are you doing?" Some shaman, what are you doing? Don't touch that. But I'll just go with the blonde American excuse.
One thing too that I've received since coming here, because one of the things that came to me was what you've done in the past is not in vain. Rudolf Steiner's a big karma guy, and he read a book about him, and he basically said karma is the best thing, because he's like, whatever you do in this life and you keep doing good, it's just gonna keep getting better. You're just gonna, And I think what we've done in our past is starting to awaken, and it'll awaken more, but it's still with us in those gifts and those powers. So it's like, especially in me, they're trying to be awakened in some way, um, and that's why it's almost interesting. It's like things that we did in the past, we did so almost we could use that energy and information to impact the future.
Mm,
What I just kind of saw, it's like the things we integrated and learned. Let's just pretend as a past life as a Shipibo Maestro shaman, and whatever I would have learned and experienced and integrated that time was necessary so it could impact this time.
yeah, we had to become who we are becoming for this part of the journey, which who knows what's going to happen in the next 20, 30 years of our lives. It could be nothing, seemingly, in comparison to what we all feel is coming. It could also be way more intense than any of us could have imagined, which I tend to lean towards. But without those past life experiences building to where I'm just born into this body and then sleep for the first 35 years of my life by design, to begin waking up by design in 2011, to be where I was at 2020, to be able to handle 2020 the way I did so that I can continue to grow to where I'm at now in 23 with no, that's where the crash came in 2014 for me, to let go of the illusion of helping or serving anyone other than myself as this crazy experience of life that we're going to live through in the next 20, 30 years unfolds. I'm no one's savior. I'm not here to help anyone else do anything. That's their job. I'm here to continue, you know, struggling against my blonde hair, failing forward all day, every day. And for the purpose of realizing that on my knees is where I'm best able to feel that I'm serving spirit and myself. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I really feel like America, like you said, I was talking to my fiance about this. I was like, you go to America, I forget how I said it, but I said something like, go to America if you want to be part of the war. Like that's where you go if you want to learn about war, or something with the word war in there. It's like
Yeah.
it just seems like it's where the battle's happening. With China and America probably, or we're part of the big war, Russia or something. It's like, but it's because there is so much power, and I've never really thought of it this way, but maybe America has some of the biggest spiritual power in the world.
Yeah.
Where it's like, dude, we could, like, the people in America is not a lot of people. It's like 300 million or something, right? That's not a lot, but the people in America, dude, like, are the biggest influencers in the world. Bigger than Asia, my guess. Bigger than Russia for sure. Bigger than Canada, New Zealand, Australia. Bigger than India. Like in terms of people that can really influence the world through technology and spirituality, would be America.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the Elon Musks and the Bezos, and it's like anything's possible here. Can be fucking Jeff Bezos being a nobody one day, or I mean, just being an average person in a sense, and then making $100 million a day, and
Yeah.
be able to go to space or do whatever he wants. So it's probably where the war is, because that's where the most power is. And if you're anybody worth, if you're somebody who wants power, you're going to go to the place where you can get the most power, you
Yeah.
know? Like here, there's no war here because there's nothing to gain. Even if you control these people to do whatever you wanted, you're not going to get much out of them.
Yeah.
So they're just simple, innocent people, which I really love. It was like I was thinking about this the other day. This is really random, but I was like, these people don't need guns. It's not necessary. And I'm not saying you don't need guns in America, because I think you do, because it's a fucking, I think you do. Like, you need guns over there, but here they don't need to defend themselves. There's nothing to defend themselves from. It's just not going to happen. Not right now, anyways.
Yeah.
So there's no gun control here because it just isn't in the paradigm. It's not in the culture. It's not in the environment. But dude, I've walked around in San Diego or Los Angeles or Escondido sometimes, and you're like, doesn't feel real safe around this part of town. Like you feel like you would have to protect yourself or something.
Yeah. Yeah, something you said earlier that just came back to me, that one of the gifts of the spiritual orientation in my life is to be able to live in this environment that is so heavy and dense and potentially dangerous, powerfully dangerous, but to be inside of a bubble within that environment of peace. And to be able to recognize that like everyone around me that's participating in this freak show that we call America, they're doing it whether they know it or not by choice. And I use this example all the time. If everyone in the world simultaneously agreed to stop going to McDonald's tomorrow and never go there again, McDonald's would be out of business in a week. There wouldn't have to be a giant protest. There wouldn't have to be economic sanctions, yada, yada, all these things we think will stop evil corporations. Not that they're evil per se, but like just these giant wetico corporations that are consuming all the resources of the world and all that. It's a choice to participate in it that keeps it going. And I'm doing my best to live in this place and not participate in as much of that stuff as I can be aware of. I'm still participating. I still have a bank account. I still pay bills, and I still live in the matrix in that regard. But I'm doing my best to, within the matrix, make different choices. And that's so well represented by what happened last night. Because in the matrix, I experienced heaven, and then, for me anyway, a form of hell 2 hours later in a totally different place. And I was doing my best in that place to bring my little bubble, but it was like that scene in one of the Hobbit movies where Gandalf he's like got this staff of light and this bubble of light around him, and I was going to say Voldemort. The bad guy is like he's much stronger than Gandalf at this stage. And so he's like pushing the darkness, and Gandalf's like, and he like pushes the light bubble back out. But then the darkness pushes in until he's just defeated and his staff shatters and he's just like captured. That's how it felt for me last night. I was just like fighting. Oh, I'm not going to get sick. I can do this. I'm strong enough, and then I'm just like surrendered to the inevitable. I got to get the fuck out of here, man. Like, I feel like I'm about to throw up or pass out or something. This is too much for me.
I
So, yeah.
Let's see. Oh, I never thought of this way. I had thought about what you had said before about like if people just stopped agreeing or stopped doing it. I was like, yeah, like if kind of everyone just left America, it would just cease to exist. All these politics and wars, and people moved to Peru and other places. And then something interesting when you were talking about that, what came to my mind was like people love it. That's why they don't leave it. They love it. They love the war. They love the battle. They love the fight. They might say that they don't. They might say that they don't want to be in there, but they do. Because they're in it and they don't leave.
Yeah.
So it's like we secretly love the fight and the war. And in America, like I don't think this is how it is in Peru, but every movie in America is good against evil. Harry Potter versus Voldemort, Rebellion versus the Empire, Hunger Games, Transformers. Everything is like a very severe depiction of good against evil and a war. Avengers, like people from aliens in outer space, and like that's like what our psychology is. I think over here it's like drama and relationships, like soap operas and stuff like that. And it's they probably have some of that within their culture. But ours is like battle, dude. Like we're. So it's like you're saying, it's like I think one of the big things too is like with the partner I'm talking about, he really wants to change my other partner. And I'm like, dude, you just can't do, people don't want to change, man. Like, it's like, don't be in a relationship with somebody you want to change. It's like, try, you can't go to America and be like, stop the war. That's where you go to be part of the war. If you don't want to be in a war, don't go to, like, be like me, get the fuck out of there. I don't think I could go back to America and be like, hey guys, let's stop the war. It's like, no, dude, time to pick. I would probably, like, instigate it more. Like, dude, we're in a fucking battle. Because that's what you go there to learn. That's what you go there to develop. And maybe we develop how we, fight these things and not fight violence with violence and darkness with darkness and next way, but it's like, no, dude, that's where the war is, and that's where you're gonna go to war. And if you don't want to be in a war, just don't be in that area. Don't go to a war zone and be like, let's have peace. It's like, that's not a smart idea.
I hear you, and I agree. I feel like I was born into this lifetime in this country to get the training, like not actual battles and physical combat, but just watching those all those movies and all those TV shows and all those cartoons and all that programming to get my mentality to be oriented towards fight violence with violence. It's the answer kind of thing. Even though that's not really the lesson of those movies. If you dig deeper, there's deeper stuff there. But what comes to my mind is I think the movie's called Siddhartha. It's got Keanu Reeves from way back in the day, and it's the story of Siddhartha turning into Buddha. And at the very last second before he turns into Buddha, uh, Ajna or whoever the bad guy is like shooting. He's got this whole army coming at him, and he's just sitting under the Bodhi tree, about to turn in, about to ascend, and all these flaming arrows are coming at him. And he looks up at the arrows, and he just sort of turns his head and smiles, and the arrows turn into rose petals and fall to the ground. And that's the moment he ascends into light and becomes Buddha, because he realized, like, that's an illusion that I'm choosing to participate in, and I can imagine that energy to be whatever I want it to be, right? And so that metaphor for me is the potential answer to the war mentality of America. Is like last night, giving people that are war oriented people who are looking to shift out of that, they feel the call to shift out of it, giving them an opportunity to do so through sound healing, through plant medicine, through whatever. In the middle of the war zone, there's a bubble of light where people are choosing a different reality for themselves. Yeah, I could go fight the war tonight, or I can go do this activity tonight and just not be part of the war. And the more people that see that and see I want that for me. That looks awesome. That person had an amazing experience. I want to have that experience. Yeah, I could fight the war, but this looks cooler to me, man. And it's not even a question of like stopping the war. The war will just stop because there won't be anybody fighting it because everybody else is choosing. So like that to me is like, if there's a utopia coming where nobody could have seen it coming. Everybody thinks that we have to protest. We have to fight these bad guys, the reptilians or the whoever's running the world, like all that, the power of the world, like the darkness of the world. No, we don't have to fight any of it. We just have to stop participating, because the only reason it exists in the first place is because we're giving our power to it by participating in it.
Anything you fight, you align to. Anything you fight,
Yeah.
you give power to. That's why Donald Trump was so successful. It's like all the people that hated him or didn't like him were just giving him energy, giving
Yeah.
him power, giving him attention.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't know what it, but maybe because there's something to gain from Donald Trump, until he's just not going to win, because people are just like, hey, it's just like leaving to Peru. It's just like, instead of fighting the problem, you're choosing the right answer, right? You're like, maybe Robert F. Kennedy's the hero we all need, instead of fighting Donald Trump because you hate him so much, you're like, I'm just going to support Robert Kennedy or whatever his name is, like, and that's it. It's like, you don't need to fight I used to hate that too, because my brother used to, antagonize me a lot as a child. And I learned to, I learned to ignore him, just completely ignore him. And it wouldn't bother me. And I wouldn't fight him. I just ignore him. And then it would be like, even when we got older, like in our 20s and 30s, like he would really bother my sister, and she would get so mad at him. And I would be like, Candace, you have to like let it go, or don't, like, you're just giving him what he wants.
Yeah,
He wants you to make you angry. He wants to get under your skin. And it bothered me because it was like, you don't get it. Like, he wins now. Like,
right.
you have to let it go. Like, so I agree. It's like when you just move into a different direction and choose a different way, there's no need for it to like to fight the war to stop. It's just gonna stop because this is the energy is you're not giving it to it. You're not giving it what it needs to continue.
Yeah, yeah. Truth. People stop choosing out of these two options. They're not voting. They're they're participating in a rigged game. I like what George Carlin said about voting, because he said, people always say, if you don't vote, you don't have a right to complain. He said, I think you got that backwards. If you vote, you don't have a right to complain because you're participating in a bullshit system that you know is bullshit, and you're choosing to give your power to it. You're voting to give your power to another person instead of just leading yourself. Why do you need someone else to lead you? If you're following someone else, you're not following your path. So be your own leader. That's, to me, that's the future of humanity, not just America, but what the age of Aquarius represents to me is the recognition that we don't need other people to lead us anymore. We needed it during the previous age, which to me lines up with the Yuga cycle and how the consciousness of humanity was at its lowest level during the 24,000 year cycle. And now we're headed back up, and we're at a place now, an inflection point, I think, where we're recognizing, no, I'm the leader, I'm the president of my reality. But I'm not going to give my power to somebody else. Why would I ever do that? Why would I ever give someone else the choice? Why would I give anybody the power to make a choice for me? No way. I don't need that.
Well, it's funny because I feel like I kind of do that with God in a sense, but that's kind of a little bit on a tangent. But I feel like that's what I'm called to teach people, right? And I think that's this entrepreneur age, like what I call to teach golf instructors. It's like, dude, you don't have to rely on a course or anything. Like, you can build your own golf business and do far better than like, relying on the golf course, because that's what I did and it's what you can do. And so it's like this entrepreneurship type of mentality too, because that's what entrepreneurs do. They take their life in their own hands and they build their own thing and they receive what they create and
They're leading
get.
their life. No one else is leading their life.
And I really think that's what I do. I think it's so funny because my life feels normal to me. My life doesn't feel extreme. And I'm pretty sure if you listen to me, I don't really sound like my tone doesn't really sound like an extremist per se. I don't sound like a crazy person on one end. And my life feels normal to me. But then when I think about living in Peru, having a Shipibo fiance, or drinking Daimi every month, or doing Wachuma or Hape, or thinking of Christ as the spirit of the sun, making my business golf influencer in Peru, it's very extreme probably to your average golf instructor or average American person. But it's like through my unique life, my own unique individuation, I am able to do what you're saying. And I think I'll be a good representative of you finding your own path, because I'll be an embodiment of how I sound, of how I talk, of how I look.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing God, I think, has a requisite for, at least how it works with me, is I just feel like God says, just don't put anything before me.
Yeah.
He, he's like, he's like, dude, if you love the plant medicine, go do the plant medicine. If you if you want to get a Peruvian tattoo or a Maori tattoo, if you want to do drumming and singing and all that stuff that you love, I'm totally cool with it as long as you don't put any of that before me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Give me a couple minutes. I come down.
That includes our wives.
Yeah. So, yeah, so God, I feel he permits me to do all these things. I just don't think he would like for me to focus so much on ayahuasca that I look to ayahuasca for my answers, or for source, or for something, like giving my power away. He's like, your power comes from me because you're a part of me, came from me. And so just never put any of the elements or nature above me. And then it's weird because then if I connect to God, I feel like he uses the nature and he uses the elements, like to use the presence of God to work through the elements of nature to help me. but it's like not the other way around where I'm trying to use that to access God per se. It's like more I'm focused on God. If God wants me to use some smoke and an obsidian blade, but that intuition comes from God and not like from the
Yeah.
bottom up, if
Yeah.
that can even be a thing.
Yeah. That's where I see the ego sitting there looking at the energy and judging it pure or not pure. Is it for God? Then it's pure. Let it serve its purpose. If it's not for God, send it back and start again,
Yeah,
Yeah.
for God. That's a really good way of putting it. Like I try to serve for God, and sometimes you gotta know when people don't need your help or they need to fail. Don't get in the way of that. It could be God's plan for them. He's like, hey, I need them to fuck up right now. Don't get them out of this hole.
Yeah.
I'm teaching them something right now. Hey, he needs his chronic pain. I'm building capacity. I'm building humility. I'm building openness. I'm building innocence. I'm building faith.
Yeah.
Don't. All right, brother. Well, I think we got to wrap it up. This was a good talk, dude. This was a really good resolution conversation. A lot of things connected and coming together.
I appreciate it, brother. It's always fun. We always I love how we just dive right in. Like, hey, what's up? Okay, so anyway, blah blah blah. Like you were just here an hour ago. We're just continuing the conversation, it's so fun.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm going to really work hard at connecting some courses this next week. I tried connecting some last week, but you want to stop recording? Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe that might talk about